Hey, Doug,
Well,
Tamara,
hello there.
how are you guys?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
Good.
I'm finishing an ice cream cone.
That's a good thing to be doing.
It's not fair, not
All right, good
fair.
thing you're doing.
I could go run and get one, probably.
You go run and go get one. That's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
I think we have a fairly full complement tonight.
Yeah, it looks like.
Bobby said he wasn't going to make it, but he's the only one I've heard from.
Right.
Right.
You got everybody else.
I think so.
Yeah, good.
Hello, everyone.
Hey,
Hi, Joy.
Hi, Tom. Hi, Doug. We all here? Yes, we are. Good.
I think
We
so.
Hi, Michelle.
Hey,
You've been busy.
yes, I have.
Yes, you have.
Ann, is everything growing at your house?
Oh, boy. The grass is so tall, I keep losing my cat. It's like,
Oh, no.
Clifford, where'd you go?
Yeah, the weeds are winning. We pull all the noxious weeds and we've about an acre. There's no way we're catching up.
Yeah, no.
You know, it's good though, because then there's less chance of fire until it dries out, I guess.
Until it dries out. Yeah, hopefully
Yeah.
it won't, because if it dries out, we've got a lot of vegetation that's really tall.
Yeah, I know. I keep measuring it, knowing that some of it has to be shorter than a certain amount.
Yeah, no, I just let mine grow. Well,
We have
maybe-
an area that's wild, like the Garden of the Gods, well, almost an acre of it.
yeah,
Whatever grows, but I go up and find those, you know, any myrtle spurge or any of those other ones that are invasive.
oh yeah. Yeah, I've got a thing called what's it, like mustard onion or something.
Oh,
Just grows at the speed of light. And it gets, if you let it go, it gets like 4 feet tall. I mean, it
Oh,
is
gee.
really bad. Yeah. Yeah.
Is
So
it edible?
I think it is. Yeah.
Hmm.
I
you
think
won't be hungry.
yeah. But boy, it just takes over. You really
Yeah.
have to keep after it. But most other things I just let go.
Yeah, I usually get the vines, that plant that throws out vines that climbs up my scrub oak. I'll take that down.
Mm,
I
right.
don't know if it does them any harm, but it doesn't seem to do them any good.
Yeah. So is that your puppy behind you?
Oh, it's one of them. Yeah, she is my Zoom puppy. She always has to be. We try to put her in the other room with the other two dogs, but she's insistent that she's on the couch.
Oh,
Very cute. Yeah.
So she's up there, and she had to go to the vet today to get her heartworm test, and I don't think she's very happy.
Oh,
I've
puppy
spent
man.
$4,000 at the vet this last week. So
Yeah,
gee.
what did you do? Or
my cat's got renal failure.
oh,
Yeah.
We've-
You
Yeah,
can,
I've been through that.
yeah. You can
Boy.
spend a lot.
Only 10, but no vets are available. So you have to go to the ER and they charge you a lot.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
we've used them before. They do charge an amazing amount.
Yeah.
But that's what we do, though, isn't it?
Yep.
And yep. You got to
They're
take
your
care of 'em.
babies.
Yep.
Yeah, there are babies.
Yep.
Well, Doc, I see you must be in a cabin, it looks like.
You know, go figure. I
Yeah.
mean, this seems to be the way.
It doesn't-
Just noticed that. Thought it was odd.
Yeah, no, and there's if you see behind me, you can see a scar from where there used to be an old window.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
this is the house, this particular cabin that I'm in was the last house built in the valley in 29. And both my great grandparents died in this house. Keith
Oh.
and Maud both died here. My grandfather died here. I
Wow.
almost died here.
Wow.
But fortunately I survived my heart attack.
Yeah.
But this
Right.
window behind me, I've thought about putting it back in. you know, it's behind the building and just up against the hill, but still it would be nice for a little bit of air and light, you
Yeah.
know, and
Right,
that was
right.
originally in there. So I've got
Right.
windows laying all over the place, but yeah, I'm in Douglas fir cabin.
Okay, I
Ah,
remember visiting them. They're quite impressive.
yeah, they
Well,
are.
you'll be next time. I appreciate that. Next time you come and visit, I will be holding a big to-do in 2022 because we got robbed of our 100th anniversary. 2020 was our 100th anniversary, so
Right.
obviously we
Yeah,
couldn't
that
have any
was, that
celebrations.
year didn't happen. That was just an odd year.
The year that didn't happen, but they
Yeah.
still kept the mortgage company seems to think that it still
Yeah,
happened.
I don't know what that was
And
about.
and the interest
Right.
rates were still happening, but you know, that's okay. I don't
Yeah.
mind. And Annie and I are going to be moving into Pinion,
Oh,
which
okay.
is the last house built on the estate, and it's the big one. It's like 2,700 square feet. And
Well,
Oh,
that'll be nice.
It is
it's
big.
really nice. So
yeah.
Cool.
Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. If everyone is ready, I'd like to call the meeting for July 7th, 2021. It's 6:01, and I'd like us to be called to order. And for the public, because I think we may have some people from the community here this time. So if we could just introduce ourselves in case they don't know us. My name is Joy Porter.
Tamala Wright.
And
Douglas
Nichols.
Ann
Excuse me,
Nichols
Doug.
and Douglas Keithley Edmonds.
Okay.
I'm Michelle Anthony, the senior planner.
All right. So the first order of business is the approval of the minutes. And I have an odd request. Michelle, this meeting is going to probably be fairly complicated and long. And I'm wondering if we can look at items 7, 8, and 9, move them to the start of the agenda and go ahead and postpone them to our next meeting, just in case someone's sitting waiting for them and we may be out of steam by that time.
Yeah, certainly.
We do that? Does anyone disagree or?
No,
Right.
That's the Spring Street deal, and
No, it's
no.
the review of the updated mini grant program, the SOP,
okay.
and the historic district plan.
Okay.
If we can move those to 1, 2, and 3 and go ahead and postpone them, and then we could start. And we still have the 1805 after, and then we also have the Carnegie Library information only. And I think those would be fairly easy for us to do.
Yep. I think that's
No
a
one
good
has a-
idea.
Is that a good idea? Okay, thank you. So.
and I thought I was under the impression that the mini grant and the survey were going to be part of our special meeting on the 19th. Correct? Is that the
Yes.
date?
they
That's
could
the
be,
intent.
because the applicant that we have doesn't look as complicated as others.
Ah,
So that would be a good place to move them to. So Michelle, do I just bring it forward, just may have a motion to move?
Items 7, 8, and 9 to items, it would actually be technically 2, 3, and 4 because we need to do the minutes.
Okay, 2, 3, and 4.
So if somebody could
second.
move.
So
I
I'll make,
move that. Go ahead, Ann.
go ahead, Doug. You move and I'll second.
I move that the items now, if I get the numbers right, 7, 8, and 9 be
Yes.
moved to items 2, 3, and 4.
Mhm.
Right. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And then we can go ahead then and start and then go ahead and postpone those once we get to that point. Okay, so
Right.
approval of the minutes from the June 2nd, was it? The June 2nd, I think?
Mhm.
Yes, the June 2nd. Any changes or spelling errors or anything they're pretty accurate, but I missed things.
They look good to me. I would move approval as presented.
Okay. and
I can second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
I,
Okay. And then as we move into unfinished business, I think this is where I'd like to talk about how the procedures go and then ask if anyone has a conflict of interest in any of the items. For the public that is listening or residents, just so you know, what we do is we're going to hear a staff report on each of the items. And then we will ask any questions of Michelle if we feel we have questions. Then we will turn to the applicant who will present what information they choose to present. We will ask any questions of the applicant. At that time, we'll open the meeting to the public and ask for any comments or questions. After that, we'll close the public comment and we'll move into deliberation as a panel. And then we'll make any decisions or next steps or whatever we decide. And that is for each one of them. And so there will be a place. And Michelle, are you looking for hands when we get to that point?
I'm sorry.
Will you be looking at hands when we get to the point of asking the public to be brought over?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
And we'll explain how that works also.
Yeah.
So at this time, if any of the commissioners have ex parte communication or conflict of interest, this is the time to declare it.
Okay, so I do have a conflict of interest with one of the items on the agenda this evening, dealing with the windows at I think it's 425 Washington.
Washington.
And I apologize for not being really tuned in to. I've studied the agenda this evening. I have studied the packet, but I have difficulty doing the split screen thing and seeing the packet at the same time. And what I will be recusing myself of is the window replacement that's been requested for Cat Spa / Sunwater Spa Systems. I gave them professional advice, and I will say this just so it can be noted in the documents. What they did with my professional advice, or if they took any of my advice, is besides the point. But I will be recusing myself from that agenda item, so there'll be no conflict of interest.
Okay, thank you, Doug. I know I know it's always difficult to do that.
Not a lot of folks in this area deal with old windows.
No, and that's why we appreciate that you are a professional in our community. We will ask when we get to that to just leave the panel and go into, I guess, the audience, and then we'll bring you back when we're done with that item.
Sure. I don't know whoever is the whatever they call it, the administrator of this meeting will have to do that for me, but or I can just leave the meeting and come back.
Yeah, no, we can move you into the audience because then, you can't
Okay.
influence the discussion from there. So you're fine.
Right.
No problem.
All right. Any others?
No.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and start, which would be item 5. Item 5, which is MCAC 2104, and this has been postponed, Michelle.
Actually, you need to start with the items
Right.
2, 3, and 4 that you moved up from the bottom of the agenda.
Already-
That's all
already
right. That's all
on.
right. It's hard to keep track of.
Can I have a motion to go ahead and move 2, 3, and 4 to postpone those till the next meeting on July 19th?
Sure, I'll make that motion.
I will second.
1 second, okay.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you for catching that. I already moved on in my mind. That first one that I said, MCAC, has been postponed. Michelle, do we need a motion or we just?
Yes,
have-
please.
Okay,
Postpone it to the August meeting, please.
to the August 4th meeting. Someone like to make a motion?
So I'll move that we postpone MCAC 2104 to the August 4th meeting.
Okay,
I'll second that motion.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great.
All right, now we're going to go to MCAC 2107, which is a material change of appearance on 204 Chelton Road. John McKee is the applicant.
So you all are probably pretty familiar at this point, since I think this is the second time that it's actually come up on your agenda. The request is for a revised plan for home construction for this property. The previous, for the property, which is in the log cabin subdistrict. So the previous proposal was approved in February of 2020 with the single family home proposed on the site, cited some 90 feet plus or minus back from Shelton. And in the area that's now proposed for home construction, there was a 2-car garage, a detached 2-car garage. So quite a bit of separation between the home and the garage. Given all the changes that have happened over the last year, and I think particularly increase in materials costs, the property owner is proposing a smaller home down in the close to the area that the garage was previously proposed, just with surface parking and no garage. A more modest proposal for the property. And this was on your agenda in June, but unfortunately, I wasn't able to be at that meeting, and I guess there were some questions or some issues that arose, and so it was postponed to this meeting. So what's proposed now is a 1.5-story house with approximately 1,000 square feet of living area. It's sited about 28 feet from Shelton Road. There's 2 uncovered surface parking spaces that are to be developed in front of the house. There's a covered street-facing porch. The proposal is for either 6 or 10-inch log siding on the main walls. There's some updated siding proposal that's in the packet. Cedar straight-cut shingles on gables and the rear dormer, actually both rear and front dormers. Simple 1/1 vinyl windows, mainly in 2 pairs, are shown on the front elevation, and then there's that repeated pattern plus some singles and some small rectangular windows in the street-facing dormers. Architectural style composition shingles on the pitched roof. The roof has the main ridge, it runs parallel to the street. And then there's 2 proposed gabled dormers that are now shown on the front of the building, and the porch has a shed roof form. There is a natural boulder retaining walls proposed on either side of the parking area, and with the alternative of actually just using those boulder walls around all 3 sides of the parking area, or cladding a concrete wall at the head of the parking area closest to the house in manufactured stone. So the home will actually be behind and above this wall. Craftsman front door with 2 vertical panels and 2 to 3 windows in the upper portion. Rough cedar window and door trim that needs to be confirmed. And there's an exterior wall mounted porch light that you have been provided information on. So the following are the guidelines for new construction and additions to, and also incorporating the log cabin sub-district guidelines and site improvement guidelines from the design guidelines. So in regard to building alignment, the house, as I noted, will be set back approximately 28 feet from the front property line, which is significantly closer to Shelton than the previous home plan for the site, and slightly farther back from where the garage that was part of that prior plan had been located. Houses in the vicinity vary in setback. Some, especially newer homes in the area, sit farther back, and other homes, particularly some of the older homes, sit closer to Shelton. Staff's provided 2 maps in the packet with highlighting along the 20-foot front of the property frontage, showing where those 20-foot setbacks would be, so you can kind of see where the other surrounding property is located as far as its development. The siting of the home responds to the topography on the lot and the need to hold the driveway and the parking area to no more than 10 to 12% grade. That's per fire code. Also per building code, the home must be at least 6-foot distance from the retaining wall so as not to trigger an engineering requirement. Basically, the requirement is 1.5 times the distance of the height of the wall. So if you have a 3-foot wall, you'd have to have 4.5 feet back. If you have a 4-foot wall, it's 6 feet back. Setbacks and siding in the sub-district are more varied than other areas of the historic district, where pre-1900 development patterns may have been more uniform, some of the more Victorian areas of town, you could say. The alignment as proposed is acceptable and largely dictated by terrain and lot configuration. It's a pretty narrow area of the lot, so they don't have much room to shift from one site or the other. In regard to building orientation, the front entrance is oriented east facing Shelton and conforms to other homes in the area. The front, in regard to building height, the front facade of the home, the actual building itself will be about 22 feet from ground level to roof ridge. The home will sit above a retaining wall at the back of the parking area that's about 4 feet tall or under, and at 1210 pitch, the main roof pitch is steeper and provides a higher profile than the typically shallower pitch on many historic cabins. However, using a shallow pitch on the main roof may result in needing to raise the upper floor sidewalls to create more livable space. Right now, that upper floor attic level has short sidewalls, so not all of that square footage is technically livable. But they gain livable area by having the roof height. So if they lower the roof height, they've got to raise the sidewalls in order to compensate for habitable area. The overall height of the new home appears to be acceptable and compatible with other buildings in the sub-district, and in particularly in this area. In regard to mass and scale, the design has a simple, almost square footprint of 25 by 26. The windows around the structure break up the visual mass of building walls. The parallel ridge means a larger expanse of roof faces the street. That could be more problematic on a larger building, but at the modest size and with dormers breaking up that visual mass of the roof, it doesn't appear overwhelming from the street. The open porch under the shed roof across the front of almost the entire width of the front of the building also provides interest and further breaks down the front of the building into smaller, more human scale sections. Massing appears to be consistent with cabin development in the overall area and more consistent with historic cabins than some of the non-contributing buildings in the immediate area. And staff's commented further regarding the dormers under roof forms. So regarding building form, the home, which is the same size and approximate location as the previously proposed garage, is a simple, slightly rectangular form. The home will be taller than the garage, which was 15 feet measured from ground to ridge, and will have a more horizontal directional emphasis, even with the slightly taller profile due to the attic living space. The building form appears to be compatible with other development in the sub-district. In regard to building materials, the materials are listed in the report. Log veneer siding on the main building walls around the structure, cedar shingles in the gables and on the sides and rear dormer and the sides of the front and rear dormer, simple trim around windows and doors. Staff assumes a 4-inch width. The applicants have provided an alternative log siding that allows for chinking to create a more true log appearance. And you have a photo of that material that's in use on a nearby building, nearby to this property, that's included with the report. Square wooden posts and balusters are featured in the porch railings. Windows are vinyl. That material has been accepted previously in the applicant's other new log cabin projects in the area and in other new homes throughout the historic district. Resident of the Keithley Log Cabin District has commented regarding the defining characteristics of the district. We've gotten a couple of comments. Those have been included with the staff report from the last time this was on the agenda. Staff believes the comments at that time, at least, were primarily related to full log construction with chinking versus the log siding that's been allowed on a number of the new homes constructed in the district. You have the defining characteristics in the current design guidelines, which are listed up at the beginning of the staff report. That does mention log siding. The HPCs approved both log construction when proposed by a property owner and wooden or even metal log siding. It was determined a number of years ago the appearance of log siding from the street was acceptable to maintain the character of the area. Certainly, if property owners propose log construction, that would be welcomed and could be preferred in an area, especially if in an area with a density of existing log cabins surrounding a property. However, that type of construction is costlier to build and maintain, and the HPC has not required all new homes to be full log structures, given that there are acceptable options available. It may be the proposed alternative log siding that the applicants have now provided information on that allows for the chinking may be a good way to address some of the neighborhood concerns. In regard to roof form, the roof of the home features a ridge running parallel to the street and 2 street-facing gabled dormers. These forms are simple and consistent with roofs in the subdistrict. The overall size of the building keeps the roof from appearing monolithic. The applicants have shown the dormers facing the street with pitched roofs. Staff suggests that shed roofs on these dormers may provide a more horizontal emphasis and while still reducing the visual mass of the main roof. Staff is not necessarily recommending that change, but just as an option that the applicants or the HPC may want to consider. Roof materials, dimensional asphalt shingles are specified in a darker green color. The use of the green roof blends in with the subdistrict and surrounding vegetation and complements the wood tones frequently found on cabins. Of porches, the proposed porch is cited as recommended on the front of the structure facing the street. Wooden steps will access the porch centered on the front facade. If open area under the front porch and more than 6 inches of concrete porch supports are visible above grade, the applicant should apply lattice screening and or stone cladding on the porch foundation or piers. The porch and steps will clearly identify the entrance and add simple architectural character to the front of the building. Architectural details. The proposed details and features are simple and visually compatible with surrounding development and historic structures in the log cabin subdistrict. The use of varied sizes and patterns of 1/1 windows gives interest, but still provides for simple detailing that is more typical in this building style. The dormers show smaller single light slider windows. If those are to remain as proposed, I believe the applicant has indicated they may expand those into 1/1 windows. But if those remain as proposed, staff recommends the use of divided lights in the dormer windows. You frequently see on older structures a mixture, and when they have a smaller, a lot of times slider window or a awning type window in operation, it'll have multi-panes even if none of the other windows on the home do. And so if they do have those smaller slider windows up there in the dormers, using the multi-lights would make those more typical to historic construction. Staff also recommends that the dormers could be expanded to enlarge to allow for the 1/1 windows. The use of a craftsman style front door is consistent with features found during the era of development in the area. And then note the exposed rafter tails, which add a subtle detail, but one that is typical to many of the cabins in this architectural style. In regard to stone retaining walls, bridges, and stairs, the house will sit above an approximately 4-foot retaining wall, which will be clad in manufactured stone or continue the natural boulder walls that will be constructed on the sides of the parking area. It's not clear from the plans provided where access from the parking area to the ground level of the home will be provided. The applicants have indicated to staff concrete steps will be utilized. Additionally, the site plan indicates the front porch stairs come to the top of the retaining wall, which wouldn't really be feasible or safe. So the access from the parking area and the actual siting of stairs to the porch need to be indicated more accurately. It's probably going to mean that the house will push back a little bit, or the steps may not be drawn in exactly correctly and may leave more of a landing at the bottom if they come straight down like they're shown. Regardless, colored concrete for steps, for any steps that are done in concrete should be specified. The use of stone walls and stairs in the log cabin district is not as uniform as other areas of the community. Historically, stone walls necessary for grade control were rubble taken from the building site. There's a significant historic stone wall across the street from this property. Rubble stone is usually smaller and walls are mortared. The proposed boulder walls will use much larger stones and will not be mortared. If manufactured stone is used, then the rubble stone wall across Shelton should serve as an inspiration for the profile and color selection. If the walls are to be entirely built from boulders, the stone selected should also be similar in texture and tone to the existing rubble found in the area. Since this is new construction, it could be argued that boulder walls echo the natural stone materials in the area. However, these walls will be prominent and will not match the character, quality, and appearance of historic stone walls in the area. The commission should discuss this with the applicants and will need to determine if boulder walls are acceptable in this application. In regard to lighting, there is a proposed light fixture that's shown in the application materials. That appears to be compatible with the building style and maintain the simple architecture of the proposed building and of the area. And then integral coloring, the applicants have provided the roofing colors. As we noted, it's green. If manufactured stone is used, the specific material and mortar color has not been provided, and that will need to be submitted either for the commission's review or to the planning staff prior to issuance of a property improvement permit. The use of any concrete visible from the street, such as for the steps from the parking area, or if the applicant concretes the parking spaces, is required to be colored per the city's accepted mix, or as approved by staff to blend in with the surrounding soil. So the property was posted, the request has been advertised and as required in the local, advertised as required in the local newspaper, and mailed notification was sent by the applicants to surrounding properties. Staff has noted previously, staff has received public comment, some of which didn't address the specific proposal, but everything was provided following the staff report and the application information. Additional comment based on the characteristics of the area were received, and those are also included following this report. And that the comment regarding the characteristics is discussed above in regard to the proposed materials. So staff's recommendation, it's staff's determination the proposal maintains the character of the log cabin subdistrict and is consistent with previous approvals, other construction in the area, and the current design guidelines. So staff recommends approval of the revised proposal for the home at 204 Shelton Road based on the application information provided with the staff report, and with the finding the request is consistent with the purpose of the historic preservation regulations to promote compatible architectural design of infill structures, and with the following conditions. 1, the driveway shall be paved with either asphalt, colored concrete, or concrete pavers per planning department approval. 2, dormer windows shall either be multi-lights if they remain the smaller size slidered units. Alternatively, the dormer windows shall be 1/1 single hung units. 3, siding that appears to be true log with chinking shall be utilized to create the look more consistent with full log construction. 4, specifications for stone and mortar color to clad any concrete retaining wall associated with the parking area shall be similar in appearance and color to historic stone walls in the immediate area, and shall be approved by the planning department prior to issuance of a property improvement permit. 5, should boulder retaining walls on either side of or around the entire parking area in front of the home be approved. The stone used for those walls shall be similar in color and texture to the rubble stone found in the area. Stone samples to be approved by the planning department prior to issuance of a property improvement permit. 6, any concrete or pavers used for walkways, stairs, or steps from the parking area to the home level shall be colored per the city's approved mix or as approved by the planning department. And 7, solid or lattice screening under the front porch shall be incorporated, and the porch supports shall be clad in stone if more than 6 inches of the concrete is visible above grade. And that is the report.
Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome.
At this time, any questions for Michelle? Michelle, I had a couple of them.
Sure.
One of them, I'm not quite understanding. So the pitch of the roof is going to be much steeper than the surrounding homes in the district. And if it's less, then the walls have to be higher. Does that mean the building would be above 22 feet then?
I don't know if it would. It would depend on a combination of wall heights and roof pitch. It may not come up. They would be allowed under the zoning to go 25 feet
Yeah.
overall. But I don't know whether it would exceed the 22 feet.
Okay. And then on the lights, they're compatible with the building style. Do you know if they're downward facing lights?
It appears, the design appears to be downward facing. Let me just look at that again.
I saw
They-
the picture. I
They
can't-
have a little cap on top. They will allow light, around, but would not allow light to go up.
Okay.
Plus, I
And-
think they're under the porch. So that also will keep light
And-
from escaping.
And do we know if the situation of the building placement is going to be 6 feet away from the retaining wall, or are they going to let us know today?
Well, the current site plan shows the proposed porch 6 feet back. And then the actual, where the house, because the porch is 6 feet in depth itself. So the porch sits 6 feet back from the wall.
Okay.
But if you'll notice, and it may just because sometimes on an AutoCAD, you drop in a set of stairs and, you may only need 2 steps depending on how high the porch is above grade. But you would not necessarily be able to run your porch steps right to the top of the retaining wall. So that if that is needed, it would probably push the house back just a little bit, or it would push the retaining wall a little forward. So they actually have a landing at the bottom of the stairs.
Okay.
But those kinds of things are generally, there's a lot of times there are small adjustments like that during construction.
And my last question, there's a significant wall in that neighborhood, isn't there?
Across the street.
Yeah, I saw it when I observed the thing, and it's significant in where it is placed, and it's,
Yeah, it's very prominent.
okay, very common, okay. And did something happen to Doug? I don't see him in the pictures.
Yeah, it looks like they put him over in the participants instead of the panel.
Oh, no.
So we probably ought to bring him back.
Yeah, he didn't need to go over there until,
No, no.
I
didn't
think he may have dropped off. This is
Ah, okay.
Christine. Nobody moved him.
I just promoted him.
He looked like he was in the participants or the attendees, but
Yeah,
Yeah, I just moved him.
okay.
So here he comes.
Here he comes.
Yeah, and I've been here the whole time. I've been listening the whole time. I'm just the
Okay.
cat.
Hi, Doug.
I'm
Did you have any
juggling
questions?
screens over here, and I'm trying to read what's being presented as along with the dialogue. And I've also read the letters from some of the neighbors, and I have also visited the site on a couple of occasions.
okay.
Good.
Do you have any questions on Michelle before we hear from the applicant?
Yeah, I've got some questions. That's for sure. I'm going to try to stay in my lane when it comes to HPC. I do appreciate the usage of what they call half log or real log siding with the permachink or Sashco products used in between. It does make it look more realistic. It's more inviting. And it sort of locks the property owner into maintaining that versus someday them just ripping the siding off and stuccoing the building. It's a little bit more true to what the historic district is about. And of course, people using log siding, which the Pretzers did at 5 Keithley Place, versus whole log builds.
Doug, I'm going to interrupt now because it sounds more like deliberations. These were questions for Michelle about her staff report before we hear from the
Okay, no, I'm good with her staff report, with the building that has been presented.
Okay, and then we'll bring up what you just said
Okay.
at our deliberations. Okay.
Okay.
So at this time, if there's no questions, we would hear from the applicant. If you would come into the panel and state your name and address, and then we'll hear what you need to present.
Okay.
Ms. McGee?
You're muted, so you need to unmute, and if, oh, there you go.
Okay.
Hello again.
Hello.
All right, so anything you would like to present to us?
Well, we could go through those staff recommendation bullets if you want.
However you want to do it, if you want to add anything or however you want to present.
We're fine with the report. I mean, so there's just some details that we could clear up, and then,
Okay, that would be helpful. Yes.
so if we start with number one, the driveway, that's fine. Is there a reason why we have to even pave? You can't use gravel, just,
It's
Pave
really
for-
for drainage and erosion controls.
okay.
So our
Is it-
code actually requires all new driveways and parking areas to be paved.
Okay. The dormer windows, you mentioned the size of the dormers, maybe you'd like larger, and then a 1/1 window. I mean, we prefer just the single window. I mean, and you mentioned you like the shed roof better than the dormer or the gable style. And we're fine with that, doing a shed roof as opposed to a gable. That's not a big issue either way, honestly. I don't understand what you mean by multi-light, just multi-panels?
The divided lights
Lighted light.
with the grids.
So a pair of like 2030 windows instead of just a 2020 pair or.
Yeah, so it would be a pair of, it would be the same windows, but with the applied grids that maybe give you the appearance of, depending on what the size of these are, 6 panes or 9 panes of, individual
right.
panes of glass. A
Yeah,
lot of times in the smaller windows, and especially in upper floors, you'll see in the old buildings that they used smaller, divided light windows, even when they were using 1/1s everywhere else. So it's just more consistent with kind of that
okay.
picture that you
That
find.
makes sense.
Okay. And then the chinking logs, we're good with that. It is a little more expensive, but we've reduced the size of this, so that's certainly doable
Okay.
for number 3. Number 4, stone and mortar color. I don't know.
We're not planning on doing manufactured stone. If we can do the boulder walls. So,
That leads us to 5, number 5,
Yeah.
the boulder walls. I guess I know the wall across the street is made out of the rubble from 80 years ago, but that's not realistic today, even finding that stuff. I mean, the owner across the street built a little stone retaining wall as well, and he didn't use the small rubble either, probably because he couldn't find it.
right by his garage.
Right by his garage.
new
So it's just not something people use unless you want to do a concrete wall and attach it. But even finding a fake rock that looks like that is difficult. It's just not a popular style. We'd like to do something a little more similar to the house down below us. 204 maybe Chelton, 202, sorry, 202 Chelton, and kind of continue what they're doing down there.
And our neighbors on the other side at 206 want to do that same boulder wall as well, the same that they have at 202. So it would just kind of tie those three properties together with the same boulder materials.
So that's our hope, is to do that.
Okay.
Number 6, the pavers for walkways. We'll work with Michelle on the color. That's no problem. Same with number 7. I don't think the porch supports will be out of the ground very high. But if they are, we'll deal with that, as you said. We probably will bring the steps down from the porch and in the middle where they're shown. We'll probably go off to one side or the other and not come down in the middle of the wall, the retaining wall in the parking lot. So we didn't detail that very well. And then if we do poured steps, we'll use the correct color on that as well. But that will not be in the middle. It'll be on one end or the other, likely on the uphill side. Is probably how it will play out.
All right.
So, and the pitch of the roof is a 10-12 pitch. You talked about possibly putting a knee wall on the second floor to add height. We probably would do that, but we would probably split that 2 feet, maybe going down a foot and then up a foot. So we might be at 23-foot height. Either way, we're not going to be over the 25 feet. So we might balance that a little bit depending on the excavating.
Sure.
And then once the public has spoken, are we going to have an opportunity to address the letters or any of the public comments?
If you're requesting to be able to do that, yes.
Okay, yes, we are.
That will
That's
be
fine.
So on the pitch, I have a question. Is it on the pitch of the roof, then you're willing to change it so it's a little matching more in the neighborhood, and then you would add probably a foot to the height?
No, the 10-12 pitch, just in the notes, it said 12-10, and I just wanted to clear that. It's a 10-12.
Okay.
I had it
Sorry.
backwards.
So just a typo thing, but
All
Good.
right, that makes more sense then.
yeah, we need the 10-12 to get any kind of headroom up there.
Okay.
And then, like Michelle said, the dormers help a little bit, and a knee wall, a 2-foot knee wall would help us as well with usable space in the attic. But like we said, we'll probably go down a foot and then end up about at 23 total.
Thank you.
So John, let me just, because as I had mentioned, if the commission said, well, we really want you to take the pitch down, because 10-12 is fairly steep.
Mhm.
It's not as shallow as what a lot of the cabins have. But to make up the headroom to be able to have any living area up there, my point is you'd have to take that knee wall and make it higher. So you wouldn't be able to do a 2-foot, you'd have to, whatever you'd have to do to make up the difference.
Yeah, that's possible. It's kind of ugly though. The more of that you do, it just takes, it doesn't look very good. A 10-12 pitch, even though it's steeper than others up there, would look better than a 2-foot or than a 3-foot knee wall and an 8-12 pitch roof. It just looks funny, honestly. Just looking at it, it's not very pleasing.
All right.
Okay. Anything else before we go on?
I don't think so. Yeah, as long as we have a chance at the end, and we're set to
Yeah,
see what happens.
That will be met when we get to that part.
Thank you.
Did any of the commissioners have questions for the applicants?
What about the mortar color?
Well, they wouldn't be using mortar. Well, they wouldn't be using mortar in stonework if the boulder walls are approved.
Okay.
And then
Chinky.
Sorry, it just was unspecified. So
And then on the boulder walls, and Michelle, this may be for you, but where do you find boulders that match the texture? So they're not just like the large boulders we see around that are dug up out of the earth and don't match anything.
Well, they'd probably have to go and find, I mean, a lot of it's probably going to be maybe granite boulders or, you know, things that have a lot of pink and red and brown in them, not gray, you know, gray colors and that type of thing. So they'd have to go to the different stone yards and try to pick some things.
And we weren't asking for a rubber wall. We would expect like a cement with cladding stones.
If you didn't allow the boulder wall, then you usually see a cement wall with either real or manufactured stone cladding.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the applicants? Okay, then at this time, we're going to open it up to any public comments or questions or anything that they wanted to share about this application. So Michelle, do we have anyone?
Let's see, I'm looking under attendees. I'm not seeing anybody with their hand up. If you would like if you'd like to make a comment, then you need to put your hand up so we can promote you over to a panelist and you can then be able to talk and be heard. Okay, I've got one. I'm gonna, John and Fran, I'm gonna take you out and put you back in the audience, and then we'll bring Danny Odekirk over. So let's see. I gotta
Michelle,
figure out
why
how to
don't,
do that. Pardon?
Michelle, I will bring Danny over.
Okay, I'm not sure I know how to make how to put John and Fran back over in the.
I'm working on it right now.
We can mute.
Sure. And then Danny, when you're on screen, if you would introduce yourself and provide your address for public record, that'd be fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, my name's Danny Odekirk. I'm at 206 Shelton Road, just next door to the lot that we've been discussing. And I just wanted to say as a public comment pertaining to the boulder walls that I know it was addressed in the plan, or that John and Fran had said that they're trying to be cohesive with the spaces around them. I know this is a new build and ours is technically not, although it's a non-contributing structure. We are trying to kind of make the retaining walls between several properties on the side of the road pretty seamless so that you don't have a break between each of the property lines that looks pretty like chunked in there. We're trying to keep it pretty consistent, which would mean the pink and brown boulders, I guess. I don't know the specific term. So that's what we're hoping to do on our lot eventually. And so having that at 204 would be greatly appreciated.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anyone else, Michelle?
If anybody else would like, just please use the raise hand icon that's probably at the bottom of your screen, or at least it is on most screens. And I am not seeing anybody raising their hand, so I'll just go ahead and bring Fran and John back over.
Okay. Hello.
And
you had wanted to address some of the comments of your neighbors?
Well, there was a letter that was I didn't appreciate, but if he's not here to defend himself, I can let it go. So that's
Okay.
fine.
Thank you. Anything else? Any other comment?
I
Are
don't
you
think
okay?
so.
All right.
Well, Doug started talking about the maintenance issues, and I know in one of the neighbors' letters, he talked about one of our builds having to replace all the siding, and I just wanted to clarify, it was in 2018 when there was a hailstorm. And so the logs that were replaced, we talked to the neighbor, and part of it was because of that hailstorm. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Good information. Thank you.
Thank you. At
All
this
right.
time then, I'm going to go ahead and close the public part of our meeting, and we as a commission are going to discuss and deliberate on all that we've learned. And thank you, Fran. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There it is. I figured out how to do it.
The things we learn.
I'm still
Yeah.
learning.
Okay, Doug, I think you had some statements that you wanted to bring up when we deliberate about this.
I have to be the voice of some of the letters that were received in this and voice some of the concerns. I don't know how many of you have paid a visit to this site. Have any of you gone to the site?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you seen that almost 90% of the lot has been excavated? That is just basically a giant scar at this point. And that's surrounded with erosion fencing. Okay, so I have to, and at the end of the day, again, this is what I'm going to say, and because I want this to be on the record. I will stay in the lane. I will stay with the guidelines of the Historic Preservation Commission. The building that we're proposing is definitely in line with that. The boulder wall is in line with that. I have very large stones using my native rocks walls around here. My great grandfather would always dig them up, and they are of variety. They're not all just Pikes Peak granite. There's some Cheyenne Mountain. There's all kinds of groovy stuff around here in the hills. Okay, but I just don't like this. I'm going to approve it. I would, as commissioners, I want you to hear this. I'm going to approve this because they're doing their work and they're staying us. But I just don't like how this looks. I see that in the future, they're going to try to replat this and build a second building on the lot behind where they were supposed to build the original building, where there's already an excavation for the foundation. The site is unruly and unkept. The only times I've ever done excavations like that in this town, they sure got on me about how bad my erosion control was and how unsafe they were. And now I see a building going in an extremely limited area with the minimal setbacks done and the entire back lot being left open. And in the future, somebody could come in and say, well, look, I just want an access easement and want to build back behind this building. And they replat it and redevelop it. So again, that has nothing to do with the HPC. As far as the building itself, it's fine, particularly with the real log siding. The other people who used either used a cheap log or probably aspen, which was they just used their cheap run material and it failed on them. That's just the nature of the beast when you come to that sort of log siding. But this particular log siding, I'm more in agreement with because it at least holds more to the character of what you see back here. And these are difficult to maintain. This is not easy, and it's expensive, and it's hard to heat. So I agree with that end of it. So I just needed to voice the concern to Chuck Smith and the 4 other residents that signed that letter, and what was found by code enforcement when there was major flood that went right down Spur and Shelton. So go down Shelton Road from this excavation, and nothing has been done to stabilize that.
Did they have an excavation permit, Michelle?
No, and that's something that it's a separate issue, but it is going to be followed up on.
Okay, because you have to have that before you excavate dirt, I assume.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, I mean,
I think it was excavated in anticipation of a building permit for the previous proposal, and then COVID hit and things changed.
I mean, if they had gone through planning and they were approved for their build, they could have started excavation. That's not the issue that I'm bringing up here. I'm trying to voice the concerns of the neighbors of where all of a sudden this small minimal house is built. There's a 10-foot setback on the north side of the building where you can easily put a driveway in and ask for an easement, and then you have this pre-existing excavation for a foundation just sitting on top of the hill right now, raw and open. So besides that, I am going to do my duty as a commissioner and stay within the guidelines and put my personal feelings aside.
Sure.
Yes,
Thanks, Doug.
you're welcome.
Any other comments?
Okay. 196 was the other one that we approved. The McGee's, I love their construction style and everything, but 196 ended up, once we saw it built, it looked a lot taller than what we ever thought because of the way the elevation of the lot went. And it just ended up being disappointing. And I'm afraid this is going to end up the same way. And it's ending up high density, which again, I'm with Doug, it's out of our purview. And I feel for the neighbors. This is one of those really touchy applications. And you know, I'm with Doug. I'm gonna stay within the lanes, but where does this stop? Because the characterization of the neighborhood is being impacted. And I thought that's what we stand against, is losing our preservation of these areas. And we are really near that on this project. So that's all.
I agree with Tammy. When I saw that building going at 196, the minimal setback and its height, it was a travesty. It really was. And it really did impact the character of the neighborhood. I was confounded that it was allowed to happen, but I wasn't the commissioner at the time. And I don't think there's much we could have done except for really watch the height of the building, which was definitely needed, particularly since it was built right next to a building that was built in 1924, single level, a 6-on-12 pitch with a rambling porch. I mean, it was sad, really sad. There we are.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Well, I have,
Sometimes things are done, in hindsight. Sometimes you just don't see it until it's built, and
I know.
hopefully that doesn't happen often, but I'm
well,
not
the
saying it doesn't
roof
happen.
pitch, those stand out, Michelle.
This building being that it's not a full 2-story, that helps. It will appear tall because it's sitting on top of a retaining wall. So it's not at street level. So your perception is going to be that it's taller than it is. But I don't think what they've asked for is at all unreasonable.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
think
I remember this was one of the, I believe was my first HPC meeting as a commissioner. Was hearing the original designs on this, and I know that the talking points on that were around the design of the garage, the slope, retaining wall, so on and so forth. Again, the use of large boulders, natural stone is very consistent. Sure, you can get granite, looks great. It's easier for vegetation to take. It helps with drainage and perk in your soils, on and on and on. It is acceptable in my eyes for sure, because it definitely holds true with the spirit of the neighborhood. I'm just have other concerns that obviously are not in our purview.
Right.
and I get frustrated too, Doug, when there are things that the community may think we have control over, or
Exactly.
the ability. I mean, we can't stop a platted lot from being developed as
No.
it see. We can look at the guidelines like the windows and the heights and stuff, but we're held to, because that's the only way we could get a historical district. So it's hard, because I certainly am on this commission in order to keep our town moving in a certain way, but we're constrained. There's certain things I can do and we can't do.
And I'm all about development too. I'm all about people developing private property. I do believe that there's plenty of land out there that's still available to develop. I just, see this being set up for a replat in a second build on the lot. And again, I know that has nothing to do with us, but
No.
that's what I see.
So I think we've heard, you guys have expressed your frustration, and I hear it, and I think we've seen it from some of the neighbors. But as Michelle has clearly demonstrated, it falls squarely within the guidelines.
Mhm.
Yes.
And so
Yep.
I think, as you indicated, Doug, we are going to have to approve it. And I would move that we approve MCAC 2107 with the findings in the staff report and the 6 or 7, what is it? 7 conditions in the staff report.
I second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? The motion passes
Thank you.
and it is approved. And thank you to the applicants and the neighbors who contributed their letters. All right. Let's go ahead and move on to, and it would be MCAC 2109 and the material change of appearance certifications of windows on 425 Washington. And Doug will let you go to the outside and we'll call you back in. So just go out to the audience. We'll miss you.
That's okay.
Bye,
I'll
Doug.
be a good boy. I'll keep down in the peanut gallery, I promise.
Okay.
Okay, Michelle, I'm changing his role to attendee.
Okay.
I got it. Don't worry. I'm lurking here in the background.
Thank you.
We hear you lurking, Kristen.
I try not to lurk, but I do occasionally lurk. so.
All right, are we ready?
I think we are.
Okay, so this is a material change of appearance request for window replacements at 425 Washington, which is known historically as the Alabama House. It was a boarding house for many years, a tourist house. And the area on the second floor that's proposed for window replacement, the windows facing the street are multi-light windows that infilled an open porch, what used to be an open porch on that second floor, probably a sleeping porch. And the infill was done fairly early on. And so the proposal is for replacement of 11 windows on the second level. The property is in the Lower Washington subdistrict. This building is has a building date per the El Paso County Assessor site of 1889, which makes it probably the earliest building on this section of Washington. Everything on that Lower Washington area that's north of this property is more teens and 20s development. And this would have been right around the corner, basically, from the Manitou house. And then where the Mansions Hotel was basically where City Hall is, or close to where City Hall is. The city doesn't currently have an historic inventory form on the property, which would provide an evaluation and a designation of contributing status. Therefore, according to the historic preservation regulations, the current status would be undesignated. The preservation regulations prescribe the process for determining whether an undesignated structure is contributing or non-contributing. Staff has noted the criteria that go into that and the process. The property is located, as I noted, in an area that's primarily smaller single-story cottages dating from decades following the Alabama House. The building appears to be the first constructed in the area of Washington, not the earliest building overall in the area, but the earliest on what would become Washington, and was shown as contributing to the National Register District when that nomination was drafted in 1982. Because of the lack of specific information about the property in that nomination, it was not one of the highlighted buildings. The staff has not utilized that solely to try and make a determination on contributing status. The building date, according to the county assessor, was considered. It probably is a pretty accurate date. A red flag is when we see a 1900 date. That usually means They just know it's sometime around the turn of the century, but they don't have a good date. When they have a more specific date, like 1889, that's not as usual. And so it could be a more accurate date. Additionally, a previous owner researched the history of the property and documented that by installing a plaque on the building, which I'm not sure, it didn't appear to me that that plaque is still there. But I had seen it, read it, and that's where we know the Alabama House name and that it was a boarding house for many years. There's currently no further building, or I'm sorry, no further information about changes to the original building, just from what the appearance is and what kind of an educated guess we know about the infill of that porch, but it doesn't appear there have been other significant changes. The little addition to the side there on the front, which is basically or was a laundry room for the apartments that used to be in that building, I think is, you know, probably an early on addition as well. I don't know what the original use of that was though. The building does retain its form and materials. Repairs have been done with like, kind, and quality on the exterior at least. As we know, the current survey plan project undertaken by the city will update and more clearly state the period of significance for the historic district, or even specific to sub-districts. However, 1870 to 1935 is currently referenced in the city's National Register nomination. So planning staff, in looking at the information that's available, has looked at the property and found it does qualify as a contributing resource in the local district. The original construction occurred during the National Register period of significance. The building retains its architectural qualities in association with other structures in the immediately surrounding area of the district and the Lower Washington subdistrict, which is located within. And further, the building is also part of the city's historic connections with both pleasure and health tourism. So if the applicant's not satisfied that the building is contributing, he can request referral to a preservation specialist or request review of the determination of a contributing status by the HPC to confirm if the commission agrees or disagrees. The HPC itself could also refer the question regarding contributing status to a preservation specialist if it felt that there needed to be a more in-depth and formal evaluation done. So staff does recommend the commission confirm with the applicant if he wants the commission to review the staff recommendation, or that the Alabama House is contributing to the local historic district, or if he would like review by an outside professional. If so, then staff recommends the hearing regarding the window replacement occur after the commission undertakes such review or has the review referred out. So what I would suggest is at this point, we bring the applicant over to confirm whether or not he disagrees, wants more evaluation, wants the HPC to take it up, that type of thing. Then once we know that, and we can see whether the hearing should continue, then we can continue on it. So Christine, could you, let's see who's here.
Yes, I'm looking. If
Lynn's a little over halfway down.
there he is. Okay, Lynn, I'm bringing you over.
And if you would state your name and address for us, for the record, when you come over. Hello.
And Lynn, you're muted.
Hi, there I am.
Hey, Lynn.
Hi, everybody. My name's Lynn Edinger Harwell. Do you want my home address or you want 514 El Paso? Or my home address is 2721 Uinta Street.
Okay.
In Colorado Springs.
Thank you.
And so you heard what I was talking about, Lynn, with the designation of contributing or non-contributing, and the evaluation that I did, that my take on it is that the building is contributing to the district. So are you satisfied with that evaluation? Do you want it to be reviewed elsewhere?
I'm satisfied with that evaluation.
Okay, so you're good with us continuing the hearing for the window
Yes.
replacement? Okay, so we just needed to hear that. So
Okay.
basically at this point, we put you back in the audience. I'll continue the staff report and then we'll bring you back when it's time to talk about this next section.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully Christine's doing her magic on you. While she's doing that, I'll just continue on. So the existing building is a 3-story structure with a wood shingle siding and trim, a stone foundation, and a street-facing gable roof that features 1/1 windows on the 3rd floor and attic space and the ground floor elevation, and around the sides of the 2nd floor level, actually around the sides of all the floors. And then the proposed replacement are the 5 1/1 windows on the side elevations of the 2nd floor and the multi-light windows on that same level facing the street. The street facing windows are comprised of 4 slider windows with 12 and 16 lights and 2 individually framed 12 light windows. They tended to do porch infills kind of with windows that they either salvaged or, you know, there a lot of times there are things, it's what could you get to kind of fit the space that you needed to fill. Staff did recommend the applicant consider restoring the windows and applying for maintenance mini grant or a series of grants to assist with those costs. Provided with the report is a letter from HPC member and local contractor, Doug Edmondson, who does have window restoration experience, providing his recommendation to replace the windows in question. Staff's noted a little later in the report that actually Doug's evaluation really only speaks to the multi-light windows, and the initial discussions with Lynn really just referenced those. It was only pretty late in my review that I realized we were talking about the windows on the side. Mm-hmm. So I've addressed those later on in the report. So the following are the Chapter 3 Sustainable Building Strategies and Chapter 4 Preservation, Alterations, and Additions to Contributing Residential Structures. So in regard to window preservation versus replacement, you know, the guidelines has several paragraphs that address the benefits of keeping historic windows regarding return on investment, retaining embodied energy, and the value of maintaining true historic character and materials. The applicant has obtained an examination of the windows by a local historic restoration specialist who found they are not reasonably able to be restored. Therefore, no cost for rehabbing the windows was provided. The applicant has noted the cost for replacement is over $20,000. Actually, I think it's over $24,000 under the current proposal that they've provided. The applicant initially indicated only the multi-light windows on the front facade of the building were the issue. The evaluation by Mr. Edmondson doesn't appear to address the 1/1 windows on the sides of the 2nd floor. Staff questions if those windows are in as poor shape as the multi-light windows on the front of the building and if they could be rehabbed, with or without the application of new storm windows. Staff does not want to see a precedent set regarding replacement of all the windows in this building based on this current information or lack thereof provided for the 1/1 units on this level. Is the condition of these units similar to the other 1/1 units in the building, or are these windows in significantly worse shape than windows on the other building levels? Basically, are some of the questions I had. In regard to architectural character, the existing structure is very simple in form and detail. One of the primary character defining features of the building are the shape of the roof line and the use of exterior materials, and the mix of the 1/1 and multi-light windows. The windows enclosing the former porch are typical of this type of early modification. The information in the application doesn't specify the material of the proposed replacements. Staff believes the applicant may have indicated composite material is proposed. Note the estimate provided by Renewal by Anderson specifies no grills, which would not be appropriate and is not consistent with the current proposal. I think that proposal, that cost estimate is for the initial proposal that the applicant had them submit, because he was proposing to match the 1/1s and get rid of the multi-lights, but has since understood that that really is part of the architectural history and that detail needs to be retained. So that cost estimate will need to be updated. I have addressed the new windows, maintaining details of the existing windows in the discussion regarding architectural details. Mass and scale, staff believes the proposal is for the replacement windows to be placed in the same openings as the existing units, although that does need to be confirmed. There's just not a lot of detail on if there's new framing proposed and that type of thing. The applicant or his contractor need to verify there'll be no changes to the dimensions of the existing openings, or if there is a difference, what that is. As long as the windows are in the same location and are the same dimensions, then there'll be no change to the visual mass of the front building elevation. In regard to the windows themselves, as noted, the windows will be in the same location on the building's second floor. The proposed material needs to be identified. The estimate lists dimensions for the proposed units. However, no information on the existing window dimensions and coordination between the locations of the existing and those identified on the cost estimate has been provided. So it's hard to match up which window on the estimate it goes in which opening and where on the building. The documentation needs to be provided to allow the replacements to be evaluated and to confirm there'll be no changes to the window openings. In regard to architectural details, the information necessary to establish the architectural detail, that the architectural detail will be maintained is, will the existing trim be retained or replaced? If replaced, will new trim replicate the dimension and material of the existing trim? How do the dimensions of the window components compare? What sizes are the rails styles? What sizes are the mullions and grids separating each glass pane? And we're talking about the width of those components for the existing and new windows. Again, confirmation the sizes of window openings, the overall dimensions won't change. Confirmation the new windows will have the exterior grids to appear to have true divided lights. Grids between window glass would not retain the characteristics of the historic windows. Currently, the documentation provided specifies the no grills or grids, so we don't have a way to confirm that through the information that's been submitted. It appears that the original operation of all or most of the windows is to be retained or restored. The cost estimate specifies both gliding, which staff believes is what we refer to as slider, and double hung. However, there are two windows identified as picture. Again, identifying which specific opening each of the proposed replacements will be fitted into is important in the documentation, and to allow full evaluation of the proposal, staff also needs to, the commission would need to know, what does the picture designation mean? Is that a fixed window or something else? Usually something referred to as a picture window is a large expanse of fixed glass, but I don't see any areas where that would necessarily be appropriate here. So the design guidelines encourage preserving historic windows when feasible. An evaluation of the 1/1 windows on the side elevations of the second floor needs to be provided. Once that's submitted, the commission will need to find the information supports the window replacements, either just those on the front elevation or all the windows currently proposed. If it's found that the replacement of the windows is justified, then review of the additional documentation noted above regarding comparison of details, identification of which replacements go in which openings, etc., will determine if the proposed units themselves are acceptable. Should the applicant submit the additional clarifications and information before the meeting or at the meeting and the commission approve the request, staff's not received anything at this point. So if it's been brought to the meeting and if he's planning to present that during discussion, then staff recommends a motion that references MCAC 2109 for replacement of the street facing multi-light and 1/1 side windows on the second floor level at 425 Washington Avenue, with conditions of approval that document specifications and any additional information provided at the public hearing would be the way to go with that. But we do need more information. So the only, before we bring the applicant over, I did just want to note, depending on what information he's able to provide here at the meeting, if he needs additional time for that, you could postpone him to the July 19th special meeting. We would not have to put that in the paper because that would be a postponement to a date certain. So we would still be able to put him on that agenda, and then he could provide additional information and documentation, and then the commission could consider that then. I'm not saying to do that right now though, because he may be able to provide enough information and documentation that you want to move forward tonight. So
But it is an option that we have.
yes, and I wanted him to know that as well, because it would not be a full, it wouldn't have to be a full month unless he thought it was going to take that long to put the information together. It could be, just a couple of weeks.
Okay.
So anyway, that's just wanted everybody to realize that's an option if needed. I'm ready to answer any questions I may need to.
Does anyone have any questions that you want to ask Michelle? It was pretty detailed.
Yep.
Looking at that building, it's a splendid building. Okay, then if we have no questions, we can go ahead and bring the applicant back.
I will do that now.
Hello again.
Hi there. So also, I believe in the audience is Albie Salazar from Renewal by Anderson, could probably answer some of these questions also. I don't know that we have all the documentation you asked for. However, I think we can get that. I can say, if you look at everything, the photos really somewhat, if you look at those, or come look at the windows, and they're pretty bad. The windows on that second floor are different from all the other windows in the building. We don't plan on replacing any of the other windows. They're very thin, and as you can read from my letter, the angle that the afternoon sun hits that is just, makes it unbearable. I don't know how anyone ever lived in there actually, before, but and then in the wintertime, the cold, we have these huge, heavy curtains in there to try to keep the cold out. So I believe the windows really do need to be replaced. I don't know if it's prudent or allowable to ask Commissioner Edmondson to comment only on his evaluation, because he did look at all the windows.
No, it's not appropriate for him to do that.
Okay.
We like him and we appreciate his expertise, but he had to recuse himself.
Oh, I understand. As far as the commission is concerned, but he did evaluate. So, I don't know if he had more to add, but he did look at all the windows. So anyway, I'm just adding that in. We did, the grills were not in the original proposal because I wanted them to be consistent with the rest of the windows in the building. However, I understand that they can't be, and that's fine. So we'd have to amend that. And I did include, I think at the very end of the application, photos 4A and 5A where Renewal by Anderson did replacement of windows that were similar to this, that came out looking pretty good. Albie can probably answer some of these questions better, but I don't believe we're going to make any larger spaces for the windows. I think everything's going to be pretty consistent, and the intent is to for the look to be exactly the way it is, except better. I mean, the only thing that's holding those things together are paint. They're pretty bad shape. So I don't know if I don't know if you have other questions of me at this point, or if you want to turn it over to Albie for a little bit to answer.
I just have a question. So right now we don't have a formal evaluation on the side windows. We just have on the ones with the grill in front. Is that correct?
I was just looking at Doug's letter, and unfortunately, it just doesn't mention anything other than the multi-light windows, It doesn't talk about the 1/1s. And so if he did, and I'm sure he probably did, he just didn't, and maybe didn't understand at that point, like I didn't initially, that was included in the proposal. If he could update his letter to confirm that, then that certainly would, or come out and, if he didn't really look at him as in depth as what he would need to, then if he could go out and look at him, then and then update the letter, that would be sufficient documentation.
I can certainly ask him to do that. I don't think there'll be a problem with him updating the letter because he did look at all the windows.
Yeah.
Elby, if you can introduce yourself and where you live.
Absolutely. I'm Elby Salazar. My address is 8744 Vanderwood Road, Colorado Springs. And I'm with Renewal by Anderson. And I did just now forward all the measurements for each window and the breakdown for each window as well. I only sent it to Michelle because that's the only email address I really had on file.
Sure.
But also changing the size of the windows. No, when it's a historic home like that, what we would do, it's called a jump frame because you guys have around the edging is a brick mold. That's what gives the character of the home and of course the building. So we don't want to change any of that. It's not changing any of the sizing. Now in the framing side, yes, we would want to clean it out because you want a full seal on the windows, but you wouldn't even be able to tell the difference when they clean that framing. I know that you had also mentioned, Michelle, that the spacing in between the glass, that's about 3/4. It's minimal, but it's also going to be an, I'm sorry, I just went stainless steel. So it's not aluminum. So it's going to eliminate that heat coming towards the window. It's not going to be attractive. And I can show you, I don't know if you can see, this is about the width. It's about 3/4 on the spacing of it. It is going to be double the glass, which you're not going to see a difference on that. And then talking with Lynn on the space, we call them grills on the windows. They would still be the wood grills on there. So they look exactly, and they're on the outside of the glass. So they keep the vintage look of the windows. So it's not going to take away the look at all. It's just going to make the building more energy efficient. We want to keep the historical look on these Victorian homes and buildings because that's, history. So we make them to where they're going to look amazing. As in changing the trim around the windows, absolutely not. We want it to look just like it was built. When we sell our windows, we want your home to look like that's the way it was built. So we're not going to change any of the characteristics around it at all, interior or exterior. And that's why we call it a jump frame, because it's going to sit right in that space and we're going to seal it up on the inside.
Thank you, Elby, for that
It's
information.
more like an insert, Albina.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then have you evaluated, like, when we're talking about dimensions, how
Mhm.
far the glass panels are apart is not something that we're really interested in. But when I'm talking about dimensions, I'm talking about
This part, the
what's the
framing.
thickness of the rails and stiles? What are the thickness of those? The grill dimensions, the units that make up the grill, and how does that compare to the original windows?
We have so many grills that we will make it look exactly like what they have. I would have to go back out to the building and take my handy dandy little samples and I would match it exactly to what they have on right now. And we would make it the same count. I believe it's 3x4. So 3 across, 4 down on each window. And also, Michelle, you talked on those picture windows. Yes, those are picture windows as well. We're keeping it exactly the way it looks right now.
So which one of
and
those
then-
are picture?
I'm sorry?
Which ones are picture?
Yeah.
So if you, let me see, I don't know if you can see my phone.
We have,
So right here, this window and this window are picture windows. So they would not open. If you see the yellow in between, that shows that they're not going to open. See how these ones have the white?
Right,
So those two are going to be your picture windows.
I see.
And then the rest are going to be the ones that are going to be sliders.
So those are just fixed sashes in those
Correct.
frames, and then the other ones are the sliders. Okay,
Correct.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
we still have grills.
Correct. We can definitely put those grills on there and make them look exactly the same width, everything, to make it look just like what it's looking like right now.
So it would still be 2 windows.
Correct. Yep. So
You
like,
just want
let's say
open.
this one right here, it would be 3x4 down on this sash and 3x4 on this sash, but that's counted as one window.
Mhm.
And on the ones, because there are some that have 16 lights, I think it's there may be they aren't evenly divided.
They all look evenly divided other than the picture window.
Well, if you look at
No.
the two that are in from each of the, well,
Oh, I think it's because the window was opened.
Mm.
If you look at how it's like partially opened, so it looks like there's a couple little more grills in there, or like spaces, because it's separated, so they're not evenly
okay.
done.
Right.
Because
And I think
that needs to be confirmed, because that's actually even mentioned in Doug's letter.
Is it really?
There are windows that they're both 12 and 16 light windows.
6, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, that, okay, so then that would be the 2 windows in the middle.
Yeah,
And if we had to, we can definitely make it, because they look like they're kind of open to me, but if you look on the edges, they're not.
right.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the side windows that were not mentioned, oh, yes. And you know what it is? It is the storm window. If you look right here, this is the interior picture. The
Yeah.
storm window is not lined up properly with
Right.
the interior window.
So those white posts basically that you're seeing on those 2 windows that have the more lights
Right,
lined up with the, yeah, those are from the storm windows.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, would you guys want something to look like that, or keep them where they're lined up?
From a staff standpoint, and the commission can give you direction on that, but from a staff standpoint, I would want to see those slight anomalies maintained, because that's
Okay.
part of the character of the building, is that there are
Absolutely.
some slight differences. So, yeah, it would be
We
better.
would
if
just
that
add
could be
an
maintained.
additional grill in the width to make it look the same.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of Renewal by Anderson, is we're a custom window, so we can do anything that we want to make it look good.
What is the material that we're talking about here?
It is a Fibrix, so it is 40% wood, 60% thermal polymers. So with that being said, it's a recycled material, and they bunch it together. Have you ever heard of Trex Deck, the decking company?
Yeah.
That's composite. That's what we give them, our material to use for the decking company. But it doesn't look
Mm.
like it's the hard composite. You know, we can make it the white that is on there.
Do you
we
have
also
integral
do-
color?
I'm sorry.
Is it integral color?
It's baked on. I don't know what integral means.
Well, baked on, yeah.
yeah,
It comes with the color on it. It's not painted.
absolutely. Yep, it is baked on, so it's not going to chip, it's not going to fade, and it's not going to discolor, which is huge.
That's amazing.
They are the best, I'm telling you. You only want to do it once, especially for as much as they cost.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
At least you're honest.
I am truly honest, absolutely.
And I could say, I do know somebody else here in the historic district that did windows in this composite material, and they've had them for probably 12 or 15 years, and
They look the same.
yeah, they've performed
Absolutely.
well. So,
Yeah.
So
I'm jealous.
I can understand. Michelle, so just as a point of order, we really can't address the side windows until we have an evaluation. It sounds
Well, I
like
mean,
we can get.
that is up to you. My recommendation is you should have all the information in front of you and all the details. And it
And
sounds
you
like
have a-
they've been able to provide some of it. It sounds like Albina may have,
This
emailed
is
some
one
of
of the
it.
side windows where they're starting to
Okay,
show.
And we.
And we've got
appreciate that.
those pictures.
We have those
Okay.
pictures. We've
But
gone
but
down
you
and
don't
looked
have
at
it
them.
mentioned in Doug's letter. And it would be good to have an updated cost proposal from Anderson so that it's documenting exactly what you're approving. It has the grills included and that type of thing.
And the number of grills, and then since we have an extra meeting this month, it really would be more convenient to the applicant. He wouldn't have to wait till August.
Right.
That'd be wonderful. I didn't want to, until this meeting, I didn't want to do anything else to make sure I see how we're going here.
Sure.
But yeah, we can take care of, the updated proposal. And I'm sure Doug will amend the letter.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's just pulling that together.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I wasn't able to get this to the applicant earlier. Otherwise, he might have been able to
Yeah.
Yeah.
do that. So I'm glad we're able to have a special meeting and makes it a little easier.
So at this time, I guess we would make a motion if the commission is in agreement to postpone this applicant until July 19th. Is that correct, Michelle?
Yes.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion?
Or I'll make that motion that we postpone MCAC 2109 until all the detailed information that's described in Michelle's report is provided to the commission, so we have a chance to review it. And that it be postponed until July 19th at 6 p.m. at our special meeting.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it is postponed and we'll see you July 19th. Thank you.
Appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, I am moving the applicants back over to attendee role, and I will bring Doug Edmondson back over.
Yes, we want Doug back. So let's go ahead. We're going to move on to HD 2101, which is a historic district modification, revision to the Keithley Log Cabin Subdistrict. And this is a preliminary meeting. And in a preliminary meeting, Michelle, just on your guidance, we're going to be hearing from the applicant, but then we're going to be asking for questions of more information that we may need before we make a decision. And we could have a second preliminary meeting if the information we want is going to be more complicated and we need it answered. So we could do a secondary preliminary, but this is not a hearing. This is just gathering the information about what they're proposing.
Right.
And we can have questions that they could come back, and we don't know, but whatever questions we have, we
Right.
could come back then and do that. So
Right.
not a hearing.
Yeah,
Do we hear from the public then also?
you can certainly do that. That would be up to your discretion, but I would think that it would be a good idea
Because they
to
might have questions
at
too.
least let them ask questions or make comments. It doesn't have to be responded to at the meeting tonight, but
Okay,
it lets the applicant and the commission know the kinds of things that the public's interested in, and things that the applicant may want to, follow up on and provide more information on that maybe is even beyond what the commission has asked for. Technically, according to the code, only one public hearing is required before HPC. But because this is not the kind of thing you do every day, I felt like having this extra discussion period, more informal, with no formal action to be taken, would allow both the commission and any members of the public to become familiar with the application, kind of the impetus behind it, that type of thing. And allow the applicant to present information and start kind of bringing everybody along as far as, their request and the reasoning and everything. So in the staff memo, you'll note that I've outlined kind of the process for and the timing, as far as what's required in the code. Once this does go to public hearing and the commission makes a recommendation, it goes to a city council work session.
Mhm.
And would go to 2 city council meetings if change to the district is ultimately approved, because that is done by ordinance. And so staff's outlined that. Staff has outlined the criteria, provided that from the code. It's basically the same process
Yeah.
as forming a historic district, to either add to or delete from or modify an existing district. It's the same criteria and the same process, basically, just kind of a little bit in reverse. We already have an area that we're looking at. So depending on what the commission asks for and the timing for all of that, you could set the public hearing for August. You could set an additional preliminary meeting and discussion at August. You could ask them to come back for the July 19th meeting, although I would hesitate to do that only because I think then we're starting to stack a lot in that meeting.
Yes.
And it may not be productive. So I would not necessarily say that would be a good idea unless it was some minor thing that could be dealt with quickly. I think you may want to talk about doing a site visit as a commission. A commissioner contacted me earlier today and asked if that would be, and I said, absolutely. If that's something the commission's interested in doing, there's no problem with that. And I'm sure that the applicants would be more than happy to host that kind of thing for the commission. So anyway, that's this meeting. I just mainly wanted to give you the opportunity to familiarize yourself with the code and the basics of what the process is, and also the criteria and information to consider in regarding to the modification. That's information that we need to make sure, and the applicant needs to make sure, is addressed in the application. Ultimately, the formal the final application needs to have addressed the criteria or make sure that they sufficiently address it.
And can we ask, Michelle, sorry to interrupt, can we ask for a survey of the property, historical survey?
That is something that we can certainly talk about. I mean, the applicants can either seek that themselves with their own, professionals. They are professional consultants, and if they have people on their staff that are familiar with historic district surveying and inventorying, they could do that themselves and provide it. The city could go and have our own preservation consultants advise on the not only what's on the property, but on the proposal. I have actually contacted the consultants that have been working on the survey plan to see if they would give us a quote for doing that in a time frame. I think it's the kind of thing that's probably pretty quick, because there's not going to be a whole lot of argument about what is or isn't on the property and that type of thing. So we can certainly, if you all want me to pursue that on our end, we can certainly do that. There's information that over and above addressing the criteria, I think the applicant has at least started to provide, the information on the district boundaries and what the configuration they're proposing is and that type of thing. We do need to keep in mind some of the comments that have been received from the public have to do with density and things that are zoning concerns. And,
Right.
you know, a historic district designation does not mean nothing gets built, and it does not mean
Yep.
that you all as the Preservation Commission review platting of a property. You know, it's not in your purview. So that's set under the zoning, and certainly you want to have things that are compatible, and the city wants things that are compatible, but it's not something that the HPC dictates. Well, in this area, there can only be 3 lots instead of 5.
No, and Michelle, I think we all understand that because we know our boundaries and lanes.
Yeah, and I know you all do. I just want to make sure
And
that
I
people
just
in
had a
public
quick
do.
question, and it does involve a zoning question, but I'm not asking about zoning. Is in the staff report, you have it that they don't want a zoning change, but in the letter of the applicant, it says they're going to. So it's.
Yeah, I need to verify that with them, because they've told us no zone change.
and
The
it's
last that I
usually-
was aware of. If
Yeah.
they've changed their mind, I have a feeling that might be a holdover from before, when they were planning to request a zone change. But at this point, I don't think they are. And I don't believe we have an application for it. So that's something certainly the applicant can just clear up tonight for anybody that's listening.
Okay, because I know that was, I know we don't get into that, and we're well aware of it, but
It's
when
just
contradiction,
informational at this point.
I'm sure some of the people that are going to make comments, they need to understand it's not outside our purview, but that could be just clarified, even though we can't address zoning and density. We can
Right,
address
yeah.
structures and the historical significance and
Right.
understand why, whatever. So okay.
Exactly. And I know the applicants have prepared a PowerPoint that they're going to share with you all tonight that talks about each of the buildings on the site, gives you a little background, and really goes through, the site itself and what's there. And so that, I think, will be a good orientation to what we're going to be talking about.
Go ahead.
And so staff has not made a recommendation. I've not completely evaluated. This is all very preliminary as far as staff goes as well. I have not at this point provided a lot of feedback to the applicants as far as the current application. We have provided a lot of feedback and guidance to the applicants in regard to what we would consider an acceptable application, not necessarily saying that the commission's going to approve it or the city's going to approve it, but things that we saw that would be maybe, non-starters. Like I had told them that I thought they needed to add the 2 vacant lots that are being proposed that are along the Crystal Park Road frontage at the northern end of the property to the historic district, because those are right next to the cabins. And so they did make that change. You'll see that in the PowerPoint. They've updated some information. So we have been talking to the applicants about this and working with them for a while to try to advise on, as good an application as they can make.
And so when they're doing the application, it's not, some of the documentation then you're saying is not correct, and that would need to be correct in case we needed more questions.
Yeah, it'll be updated for the
Demolition of
formal meeting, and some of
buildings.
it may be corrected tonight. And definitely, a lot of times applications are a process, and as they're discussed, and as the commission asks questions or makes comments, that could change something in the proposal, but that would all be brought together for the formal public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
So that being said, I think at this point, unless there are specific questions for me, just hearing from the applicants and then hearing from anybody in the public.
And Anne has a question.
So Michelle, have we ever done this before? Removed an area from the historic
We
district?
have actually, when we modified the district and created the sub-districts, we removed literally acres from the original historic district boundaries.
And where were those acres? Were they in?
A lot of them were undeveloped property all around the perimeter of the community. There were, some of it was undeveloped. Some of it was where there was density of more recent development, so there wasn't really much context left. There was a block of things that had been built in the 1980s that nobody could figure out why, things like that. So we shrunk the district boundaries down to closer. Our local district is still much larger than the National Register district, but we are closer to those National Register district boundaries.
And what year was that about?
1990 something.
Yeah.
And those properties have historic structures on them.
Not many. There were some that were pulled out. Hiawatha was pulled.
Hiawatha Garden.
Hiawatha.
Yeah.
That's one of the things. Yeah. Now
Yeah.
that was a historic structure, not just a vacant property. So
Right.
that's a little bit different than what's being asked here. But yes, we have modified the district previously. It's just been a long time.
Right.
And it's
And we
been,
always want to be careful when we're doing
yeah,
that.
because
So I can also say, Joy and commissioners, that in 99, 2000, when I had to unfortunately sell part of our estate because of the death of my grandfather, that an augmentation and exclusion was requested by the developer that bought the property from us, and 3 of the lots that were on the west side of the original Keithley Cabin Historic District were removed.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
so
there was an
three
area where it was a little bit of a
stucco
gray
typical
area.
tract houses were built in their place.
Yeah, down on Oak Place. Yeah, where it was all vacant lots.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
there is a precedence for looking at
Okay.
this.
There is a
Got it.
precedence.
but we are always cautious taking things out.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay.
So at this point, do you all want to hear from the applicant?
Yes, to be
Okay.
very nice.
Okay.
And if
That
the
would
applicant can
be-
also then introduce yourself and tell us your address.
So Bill Gooman is the applicant, Gooman and Associates, and I don't know who all Bill may have brought with him. So maybe we can bring Bill over, and either that, or if somebody else is going to lead this besides Bill, you could raise your hands and we'll bring you over. Okay, well, let's just bring Bill over. Hey, Bill, you're muted. Oh, that's not Bill.
That's not Bill.
It's,
That's
Ed. My name is Ed Morgan, and I work with Bill Gooman and Associates. Bill is here to my left, your right. There's his hand.
And could you give us your address, please?
731 North Weber Street, Colorado
Thank you.
Springs.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for your comments, Michelle, leading us into this. We do have a PowerPoint, so at one point we're going to go ahead and screen share, hopefully, that PowerPoint. And basically, it's going to show you what the entire site looks like, the entire 9.04 acres, the limits of that, and then what we are proposing to be the new historic district. The new historic district that we're proposing is 3.29 acres, which is a reduction in area of 63%. We are looking to retain all of the historic cabins within that district, and the view from Crystal Park Road will be looking into this district, and those log cabins and those historic structures will be the most visible part from Crystal Park Road. Part of the site to the south or east of Sutherland Creek is going to be non-developable. This is about 1.42 acres, or about 16% of the total site, and that's due to topography. Can everyone see this?
No,
Not yet.
no.
Michelle, do we have the packet in case there's technical problems?
I do have the PowerPoint that was sent to me earlier. So
Do
I
I-
can go get it.
Okay.
It's in the 183 Crystal Park Road property folder. Let me see.
Well, let me see if I can access that.
You trying to get to it, Christine?
Yeah, but I'm not able to make a connection, remote connection.
Okay, I'm there.
Okay.
Let's see. And we'll just see if I can do this because I've never done share screen either. So it's gonna be fun. All right, I've got it pulled up in PowerPoint. And let me see.
So all you have to do is click share screen and then select the screen. There you go.
There it is.
Is everybody seeing that?
Absolutely, yeah.
Bravo.
Ed, can you see it?
I can, yes, thank you.
Okay, so just tell me when you want me to switch the slides.
Yeah, basically, this is looking at the lodge there at the front from Crystal Park Road. And you can go to the next slide. Letter of notification, this was sent out about 2 weeks ago. We sent it out like the day after we received it. You can see the date up there, June 23rd, 2021. This was sent out to every neighbor within 500 feet of the project. This was an optional item, but in terms of full disclosure, we wanted to go ahead and share that with all the neighbors so they could comment and listen in to our discussion tonight. You can go to the next slide. The proposed site plan there is that site in its entirety. It shows to the north and west, that is mostly the historic district. The historic district here is defined by that dotted line, and it encompasses almost all the historic structures. Those which are not included within that historic district are still being preserved for the most part, except those shown with X'd out. You can go to the next slide, please. Those are all the existing structures. It shows up a little bit better with the green behind it.
Uh-oh.
You may want to note, and I know that later in the PowerPoint, Ed, you go through every one of these buildings, every one of these green structures.
Correct.
The ones that are shown outside of that dotted line.
Yes.
The kind of squarish looking ones, the
Yes.
4 that have identical footprints.
Correct.
Those were built in the 70s or 80s, so those are not part of the historic development of the property.
Correct.
There is one cabin that's on the east side of Sutherland Creek that is being included in the proposed district.
Correct.
The 2 small, what were kind of, I think, duplexes,
Yes.
long, narrow, that are shown with X's, those also have later building dates.
Correct. Those are from around 1975 also, I think.
Right, so those aren't part of the historic development. And then the other larger building that's on the north end of the property that is located basically right where the new road to develop, to access that eastern half of the property comes in off of Sutherland. That's a maintenance building that also has a much later development date. So all the historic structures, other than there's a very tiny shed
Yes.
It's that little teeny X that's near the maintenance building. That is a small cabin shed. It's very, very tiny. And that is the only thing that is from the, probably from the era of significance that's proposed for renewal and that's outside of the proposed district boundary.
Absolutely correct.
The
That
X-
tool,
Can
go
you
ahead.
tell what the X's mean?
Pardon?
When you have an X on a property, what does that mean?
That means that's to be removed. So that's why I was going through those, just to highlight that those,
Mhm.
the historic buildings are within the proposed historic district. All right, I'm sorry,
Right.
go ahead, continue.
You could, yes, that tool shed dates from 1935, I believe. It was never an inhabited structure nor meant to be. Go to the next slide, please. That shows a little bit larger or a little bit more clearly where the proposed historic boundary is. You can go to the next slide. And we're just going in sequence, basically an S pattern. I walked the site on July the 2nd, which was last Friday. We're calling out these buildings one by one. These buildings are numbered and the numbers are at the top. So this is the view from Crystal Park Road for that first little duplex. The information is at the top. I've got to say that most of the information that's shown at the very top of each of these slides was done by a precedent owner of the property. It's a different owner now, but most of the maintenance issues, or I should say all the maintenance issues that were noted prior are still in effect right now, just by the effects of time and weather on these structures. You can see that this was built in 1925. Has a lot of work to be done on it. Currently, one of the owners is doing some interior work on each of the historic structures and also doing some maintenance work on the roofs just to prevent any further damage to the structure. We can go to the next slide. This is just a view of that same building from the interior of the project. Yep, building number 3. This also fronts on Crystal Park Road. And there we go, 1953, the structure was built. Some work to be done on that also that is enumerated at the top of the slide. Next one. And building number 5 is a smaller building, like a studio. Needs foundation work. Most of the other things also some other infrastructure work, mostly exterior. Next slide. Go ahead. There we go. Another small structure, 1935 also. Go ahead. This building is actually where one of the applications that we had in there was to wrap the existing right-of-way around this. The building right now extends into the right-of-way, partly.
Yeah, so they'll be asking for a vacation of right of way to get this building back on private property.
Mhm.
Although this one says serves 1, I'm not sure about the future use of it, but it looks like it was a duplex originally. It said serves 1 on the original data form.
Yeah, and I think sometimes I noticed that serves 1, like you said, that was developed by Cheyenne Village. And that's not necessarily meaning that only one person is going to live in like a duplex or that type of thing.
Correct. Go ahead. And this is another smallish building, about the size of a studio would be today, serves 1, kind of unique. It's built up on a foundation. Some of these structures are not handicapped accessible. And like you had said in an early presentation, the stairways and entries into an above grade building do vary quite a bit. This is one of the larger buildings. So this serves 3. It was built in 1975, so not around the WPA period.
No, so this is a non-historic building, and this is located in an area that they're proposing excluding from the historic district.
So this home would be excluded?
Yes.
From the historic district,
And
yes.
then it would be demolished?
No, it'll be used.
No, they're gonna renovate, but
And then
it's not in the period of significance for the property, so that's why they're.
that would be in this new proposed.
Right,
district.
right. So that's the building there.
To reiterate, Joy, only the buildings with the X's through them are being
Mhm.
demolished.
And none of them are historical.
They are not. They are not. Well, the one tool shed is, yes, but it was never a residence. It's just a very small shed. We'll get to it.
Are you recommending it to be demolished?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Yeah, the little tool shed, yes.
So that would have to go through a process, wouldn't it?
Actually, that's staff approval because it's a secondary structure.
Okay, thank you.
So we have this little green one here, the Vi Hines cabin.
Uh-huh.
This was interesting in that the description from the previous owner called it a motel or motel. I don't know. It's about the size of a very small studio and it says it's a respite rather than a residence.
Huh. Interesting. Have this one?
1935, this was built 575 square feet. No mention of repairs were added to this data, but I don't know. The windows look great.
Yeah.
So there's extensive renovation needed in that one.
Yeah, you can see.
Yeah.
Great.
Looks pretty good from the outside, but again, it says it's got extensive interior repairs to be done.
Sure. Notice the M's on the shutter for McLaughlin Lodge.
Yeah.
That's a cool feature.
Mhm.
Pictures on the property 1925.
Hmm.
It's below grade, so I'm not sure how well that floor is doing. Oh, it needs to be leveled. There you go. Building 21. Floor leveling needed in that one.
Nice building.
The launch. Go ahead. This is the largest building that we have. It's almost 2,300 square feet. At our neighborhood meeting, we had a lot of people inquiring about this. What would the ultimate disposition be? It was never a residence, to my knowledge. It serviced the entire property when it was cabins only, kind of a gathering space. We had our kind of open house meeting there in March. So it accommodates quite a few people, and there were interests from some of the neighbors into making it a retail type area, either a breakfast place or a bakery. No use is settled on yet, but we did have a number of inquiries into that.
I went to a wedding reception there when I was 7.
Oh my gosh.
I remember it because I got a cool Barbie doll that was dressed just like the bride. Good memories.
I love that. I love it.
I hope you didn't stick pins in it.
Now, okay, that is me now, not then.
This is another view of the lodge.
Right, and this is just looking from the interior parking lot, looking kind of to the north there. Building 22. So this is at a level located just a little bit below Crystal Park Road. It may have received some water damage, and you'll see that in the next slide as well. Yep. So this is this was a quadruplex. It's called buildings 23 through 26. It's about half the size of the lodge. It says it serves 2, but there's actually 4 different units in there. Needs a lot of help.
Hmm.
The windows are not in good shape.
Yeah.
This is one of the later homes, also same circa as the other larger homes, 1975. Jocelyn Cottage. Another similar
One
one.
really loved this design.
Let's replicate it 4 times.
This is one of the ones that we are proposing to demolish due to aligning our interior road with Mountain View. And it comes right through the center of this building.
Mhm.
And then this is the little tool shed.
It's the tool shed. So 192 square feet, rough shape. And
Mm.
like I say, this was never inhabited, thankfully. It was just used for tools.
Make a great chicken coop.
There you go.
I think the owners would give it to you for a song, actually, if you wanted it.
I'll just come get it. I don't mind lead paint. It's
You
good.
could probably lift it. So
Put it on the back of a pickup.
building 3031, this is another circa 1967 building. It was a duplex.
But they're not
Slate.
proposing to do these improvements. This is another building
Demolition.
that would be removed.
Yes, that would be replaced by a new structure. This is its twin.
And what would be the new structure?
That would be a new home,
New single family
new
house.
single family home.
So is this in the proposed exclusion district?
It is.
Yep.
Building 27, this is a little keyhole to remain within the historic preservation district. So that building would remain. And this is another 1975 circa quadruplex or triplex, duplex.
I was so confused of why it was called the Weed Cottage. That just cleared it up.
Yeah. That's
Yes.
his last name.
I was concerned.
No, everyone had the same thought. And I'm like, oh, it's an actual person. Okay, gotcha.
What it was, we don't know. But anyway, so that's the end of that. And I'll just put this back onto the slide that shows the colored version of the proposed, what the new proposed boundaries would be. That
Perfect.
So Michelle, what are the existing boundaries?
the existing boundaries taken for this property,
Mhm.
taken
entire
the
property.
whole property.
Okay,
And so this would be this area. Of course, I'm like, you can see my cursor. I don't know if you can you see my?
yeah, I
cursor?
can't, yeah.
Oh,
We can, we
Yes.
can.
I'm just all over the place with the cursor.
You may dance. It's all good.
Yeah.
This area would be the area modified, taken out of the district,
Mhm.
and then this would remain in.
So can I ask questions? Are we at that point? I can just ask.
Yes.
So why do you advantage and the disadvantage of keeping the boundaries the way they are right now? I'm confused.
The advantage of keeping the boundaries as we see it are none, or otherwise we wouldn't be proposing this. Why we want to have this part taken out is to go ahead and have some flexibility in architectural design. And I think that one of the main things about keeping the proposed boundary as it is that we are giving a nod towards our respect for these historic buildings to remain, realizing that most people's view of this building, since this is a private property, most people's view of the historic buildings is going to be from Crystal Park Boulevard.
Mhm.
There's also a natural buffer, and the bottom part of this dashed area, the keyhole notwithstanding, it follows Sutherland Creek. This provides a natural, thank you, Michelle. This provides a natural geographic buffer between what would be considered the new development and the existing historic development.
So a newer type of home that looks log cabin isn't something that you guys want to consider.
That's not what we're seeking to pursue, no.
And what are you seeking to pursue?
At this point in time of our applications, the architectural style or any kind of plans is way down the line. We're at the very preliminary stage of application right now, Joy.
Okay, so when you purchased the property, you did know it was historic.
The owners of the property did know that it was historic. I
Okay.
am not the owner of the property.
Okay, but they knew it. Okay.
They did.
And so, okay, that was a question that I had.
And I believe if you can see my cursor, this area here that's a vacant area along Crystal Park Road,
Mhm.
there would be a couple of lots proposed here. Those would remain in the district. So any new construction on those would be required to conform with the guidelines under this proposal.
Correct. Absolutely. And again, you know, in keeping with what I said before, this is the most visibly apparent part of the property. This is the part that's next to Crystal Park Road.
And the property still could be, I mean, what are the guidelines in the HPC that prevent you from developing it? Is there some specific thing that the HPC has that prevents you from developing and selling homes there?
In the HPC guidelines, or I believe it's chapter 5, I don't have it in front of me right now. One of the main things is it's the facade or cladding of the house. That's the main constraint of it. There's also constraints as far as the scale, the roof, and so forth, and so on. So you don't have to mimic what the log cabin look is, but you need to have wood facing, or, and I'm just paraphrasing, wood facing or something that appears apparent of the same type of material. And we just didn't want to be beholden to that on the back side of the property. And like I say, right now, we don't know exactly what the architecture, what the form will be on that back side.
Well, different owners could propose potentially different things if you just sold the lots.
That
But
is correct.
my impression was maybe looking something back here that's more consistent with the rest of the surrounding Crystal Hills. Is maybe what they're looking for.
That's a correct assumption. Yes.
Any other questions for Ed? It is Ed, right?
It is Ed, yes.
Okay, I didn't want to.
That's all right. It says Bill Gooman, but that's only one of my aliases.
Just wanted to get the right one.
Yeah.
Any questions at this time?
No.
Michelle, this is where we could invite the anyone that's interested in making comments or asking
Yes.
questions, or what kind of information they would want more of before we get to a public hearing.
Yes, so let me see about unsharing my screen.
I can manage that for you, Michelle.
I did it though.
You did it. Good job.
I did it.
I'll manage that for you.
Okay, and so anybody that would like to ask questions or make comments on the proposal, if you could raise your hands, then Christine can bring you over and you can make those comments. And if it's something that can be answered or addressed, quickly, then we could do that. Otherwise, it'll be something that I think we'll put kind of in the pot of comments or the pot of questions and be able to answer, in future discussions.
Thank you.
Looks like we have one individual, Corrine. I will bring her over now. Please be sure to state your full name for the record, Corrine, and your address.
Unmute. There we go. Hi. I'm sorry, it took me a while to get my act together here. I just have, two questions actually. The first one involves what are they going to do regarding the floodplain and development of and repair of the buildings there? It seems, as I recall, a lot of the log cabin area is in the floodplain. And my second question is that would the owners consider dedicating at least one building for attainable housing for Manitou Springs?
We'll go put it in the fridge.
Thank you, Corinne.
Thank you, Corinne.
Thank
I'll-
you.
Sure. I'm going to send you back over to attendee.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Uh-huh.
And that didn't work. We lost Joy instead. Hang on.
Oops. Oh,
Um, that should not have happened. Just one moment. And then there's
Now I don't
another-
feel so bad.
Yeah, I don't even know that Joy realized she hasn't raised her hand. So I'm bringing her back over now. And then there's another individual in the audience, John Maynard, who has a question or a comment. I'll wait for Joy to rejoin us and then I'll bring him over. It's not letting me bring her over. Are you able to see her, Michelle?
I
see-
just did it too. I said promote to panelist. Oh,
Here
wait a
we go.
minute. Something's happening. There she is.
Okay. You're muted.
You're muted, Joy. She can't get it to unmute now.
no. Hmm.
Hmm.
Hmm. There she goes.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm used to using an iPad on my finger and I'm on a computer and I use my finger to make it do things and it doesn't work. Too much
Oh.
technology.
So sorry about that. Okay, so we have an individual who's raised his hand. His name is John Maynard. I'll bring him over if that's suitable for a comment or question.
Can you hear me?
Hey, John.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, my name is John Maynard. I live at 1320 Indian Oaks Place, which is immediately to the east of the property that is proposed to be removed from the district. And I have one comment question, I guess it is. The information that I received from Michelle indicated that the district includes 2 recently built homes on the west side of Crystal Park Road. And there's, to my knowledge, they were not removed from the district. And so therefore, they would have complied with the side guidelines within the district. And I haven't heard any justification from the applicant as to why similar treatment can't be made and leaving the entire property within this district. To me, the application's incomplete without that information.
Thank you, John.
Good, thank you. I will put you back over. Thank you.
Is that correct then also, Michelle, that there's some incorrect documentation that would need to be changed with maybe some justifications? That would, sounds like.
I think the current application overall, it would be good for them to look at their justification and looking at addressing the criteria a little
Okay.
more directly. So that's part of the development of the application. And I think definitely this is something that we're hearing and is true. They need to address what the justification for removing from the district is.
And then also with Corinne's comment about a dedicated site, that would be something that we would want answered also.
That's out of the HPC's purview.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
right.
something
Yeah.
that if
Alright.
the applicant decides they want to offer that through the development review process, then that would be great, but it's not something we can require, and it's definitely not something HPC can
Okay.
require.
And you knew that right away.
Yeah.
I just
Joe,
see that and I
I'd
was
like to,
like,
I'd like to ask a quick question. Obviously, I'm looking at the proposed plating here. So I see that most of the old McLaughlin Lodge / Cheyenne Village is left unplatted as freestanding units combined on one property. Is it the intent of the owners to offer these units after they've been remodeled for sale or for rent as affordable housing or single family residences or things of that nature?
Will be offered for sale.
So you would go in and individually plat all of those buildings and offer
Yes.
them for sale
Correct.
in the historic district?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I would like to maybe just get back to focus on the question in front of us, which is there justification to remove property from the historic district, and suggest a couple things. I think it's imperative that the commission visit the site. So I would suggest that we schedule a site visit so we can actually understand the layout. If I've ever been on the property, it's probably been 50 years ago. So I think that's important. And as Michelle has offered, I think because this is a very unusual request, and this commission has never dealt with one like this, I do believe we should have a historic preservation specialist, perhaps the folks that are doing our survey work, to weigh in on the issues here.
I agree with that, Anne, completely.
So I think we need to accomplish both of those things, probably getting the survey folks on board, and then they could be with us on the site visit.
Okay,
Good.
I can contact them tomorrow. That's no problem.
And so the plating isn't our concern, being, HPC, but it'd be interesting to see, because there will be, if each one is fixed and sold, there's profit to be made.
Sure.
Is something a developer should be.
I mean, I think that is, in some ways, I think it can really easily be argued that that is the way forward to preserve this site. By getting it into a configuration where people can own it. There's a homeowners association, that type of thing.
And Michelle, another question I had when I was reading the application, maybe Ed can address this, is that the traffic that will be increased when you have these as individual homes, even though in 1925, when they were, it still is there, but it was Cheyenne Village, and there wasn't a lot of residents there who had one or two cars and they weren't driving. So in 1968, when the Cheyenne Village started being in existence, it wasn't like there was a lot of cars dumping onto the street. So I really like that address, because if everything is going to be individual, how?
That is they through the development review process, the major development process, they have to do have to have a parking plan, and there's been a traffic report, traffic study.
Okay.
Type of
So,
thing.
and I just read in the application that, since 1925, but it's a little bit ingenuous that how it was used with our
Sure.
whole Cheyenne Village.
Yeah, I mean, those are all the things that are under review for sufficiency, and there'll be information, there'll be requirements from staff even that you will want to see some things changed or some updates. We'll ask some questions, that type of thing, and we're in that process right now.
So our purview right now is the impact of taking something out of a historic district, which how long has that been a historic district?
Well, it was 1979 or 80.
Yeah, when the
That's what I
district
thought,
was formed.
really.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's been in there this long.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the community?
Did Mr. Maynard have another question, or is that just he hadn't put his hand down?
I don't know.
Well, now we have.
His hand had been down. Let me allow him to speak in case he had something else to add to that, and then we will go to Ferguson if that's okay.
Yep.
Okay, just a moment. Mr. Maynard, go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
I just make one suggestion based on Ann's comment, and that is, I think it would be more appropriate to have the applicant pay for the historic evaluation and then have the city's historic preservation consultant review that work.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Michelle, we have that, don't we? If a person asks for that, we generally fund it, or?
Yeah, I mean, the changes that were recently made to the regulations do make us, in certain instances, responsible. We can certainly, I think Christine and I need to talk about it with the applicant and
Okay.
see if there's, see what we can work out.
Okay. And we would
Abs-
use probably the people that we have using right now surveying the firm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct. And we do have that built into, this is Christine, we do have dollars that are in our budget in the event that reviews are necessary for this purpose. So it is an anticipated cost of doing business. The potential scope of this might be a bit larger than what would have been anticipated a year ago when the budgets were being put together. But so we can certainly visit that. Thank you very much, Mr. Maynard, for this suggestion and recommendation. Let's see, the individual named Ferguson lowered their hand. Now there's a Richard Buchanan. I will allow him to speak if that is suitable.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Kristen.
You bet, just a moment. Mr. Buchanan, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Okay.
Yeah, Richard Buchanan. I live at 1 Sutherland Road. About how many people do you imagine might be living in this once it gets constructed? Can you understand? Can you hear my question?
Yes.
We did.
Yeah, I don't know if they have an answer for that right now or not.
And
And
Ed,
similarly with the traffic that was already mentioned, the cars going in and out of this, would they all be going where, looking on the map and it says, shows a road going out on Sutherland? Is that going to be the principal means of driving in and out of the place?
That would be the principal access for the newer development. The existing cabins would be accessed, all except for one of them would be accessed still off of Crystal Park Road. And Ed, am I correct that the plan is that the bridges that go across Sutherland Creek, those would be used for pedestrian access, not vehicular access any longer?
That is correct, yes.
so Michelle, is that question something that will come up with us, or does that again go to the planning and your report?
That's a land use.
Okay. So you'll keep that question. So it
Yes.
can be answered, but we
Yes.
can't.
Okay, and we have one more individual, Mr. McDonald, I believe. I'll unmute him and allow him to speak. Go ahead, Mr. McDonald, if you could introduce yourself.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm David McDonald. I live at 1385 Indian Oaks Place. And, earlier in the meeting, it was suggested that the best aesthetic, if you will, for the east side of the property would be to make it look like the rest of Crystal Hills. I'm just questioning, and I'd like to ask the committee to consider again, if that's really what we want it to look like. I mean, for this log cabin district, really, this is what everybody sees. And this is Manitou's heritage that you can actually drive by and look at. And perhaps it would be better to have development that actually matched the front of the property, and you had something consistent from Sutherland Road and also from Crystal Park Boulevard.
Thank you for your comment, Dave.
Thank you,
We
Mr.
have that.
McDonald. Okay, and with that, there are no other hands raised.
Okay.
Thank you, Christine, for helping.
Yes, thank you.
Tech
You bet.
always
Yeah.
helps. I had the
So what I'm hearing is that you would like us to follow up with a preservation consultant, a preservation specialist, and also set a time for a site visit for the commission. And so we need to coordinate that with the applicants and with the different commission members. And so I can send out some availability times tomorrow, maybe do a doodle poll, coordinate it so that, you know, we know at least some of us are available, and then check with you all for some days and times. And then depending on what it takes for, you know, that kind of time frame, I wouldn't imagine, I don't know when the, you know, what time frame the preservation specialist might need, you know, to review the proposal and to survey the properties, historic survey. So I'm not quite sure whether we should tentatively schedule the public hearing or I mean, I guess I want some discussion and direction on that.
Well, can we go ahead and close the public part then?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and close the public part. I guess my question, Michelle, is I'm almost wanting some of the questions that were raised, we need to know the answers for before we do a hearing. I would almost like to have another preliminary hearing where some of the questions that were raised focused on the HPC, not the other ones. We can see it because we may have more questions or more things, and then set a hearing after that. It seems like I don't think as an HPC we want to rush through this. It's been in a historic district for a long time, and I don't want to just rush it and not understand the whole scope, and the community
Sure.
understands it too.
Yeah.
So would you want to set it for additional discussion and review of any updated or additional information that the applicant wants to submit at the August meeting? With the intent that we would have the site visit accomplished by then and have the preservation specialist on board and be able to at least get an update, if not a report.
Yes, I agree with that. I don't know how the other commissioners.
No, I agree totally. Yep.
Okay. And Doug?
You know what, I'd like to ask one more question. So is it the intent of the owners, because you have to understand the core of my spirit is historic preservation of these buildings. And I saw some comments where they were trying to lay the condition of the buildings on the current owners, which is obviously not true. I can definitely tell you, as someone who owns a property of the same size and the same nature, it's difficult to maintain a project of this scope and keep it going. Now, what I'm seeing from my desk is I've seen a historic property that is degrading fairly rapidly at this point. I don't believe any of the buildings have lost their CO. I don't see any papers of condemnation, or I don't see any sort of application for demolition of any of the standing structures. So is it the owner's intention to get some of these buildings online and start seeing some capital as far as rental properties, which I believe they have every right to do, as long as they're long-term, in order to help finance your project, as you guys got a bit of a road ahead of you.
And they don't seek having them as rental properties. They'll be owned.
Well,
They don't really have any interest in using
in the
rentals
meantime.
themselves.
In the meantime. Well, that's very disconcerting. I would hate to see these buildings continue to deteriorate.
There's a gentleman working on, one of the owners right now is working on them right now. There were tarps across a lot of the roofs to stem off any more water damage in there. They're doing some internal work as well.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm very familiar with the property, I assure you.
So I think their plan is to do rehab while this other process is underway. And I've actually been contacted and been working with one of the part of the team that's looking at, you know, the roofing and the different rehab and providing guidance to them. So hopefully,
I'm hoping to get him on our little tour as well, because he's very familiar with all of these from a working standpoint and internal standpoint.
that'd be great.
Yes.
Great.
Your contractor,
No, the owner, one of the owners.
one of the owners.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, that'll be an interesting conversation.
Good. Okay, so I think we have a plan forward. What I would ask for is a motion postponing or noting that this item will be discussed again at the August meeting, and at that time, we'll review any new or updated information from the applicant, any report that may be available, or at least an update from the preservation consultants, and we'll have had an HPC site visit before that date. So if somebody could make a motion.
Someone like to make what Michelle just said.
What she said.
Yeah, what she
Yeah.
said. Yeah,
What she said.
yeah. Yeah, so I would make that motion that we do our site visit, hire a historic preservation specialist, and reconvene in August for another preliminary discussion of this request.
I second it.
And all in favor then, say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you for your time, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
we'll be
you.
in touch.
Thanks,
Thank
Ed.
you.
Bye. So it is everyone hanging in there? It's 8:41. Are you doing okay?
Yep.
Okay. At this time then, we're going to move on to, we have to turn more lights on. My house is getting dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, the atmosphere definitely changes as the meeting wears on.
Yeah.
And that is, yes, and it's the update regarding MCAC 1805, 1 Minnehaha Avenue. And Linda Erland is the applicant.
Yes. Hi, my name is Christine Lowenberg. I'm planning director. I have forwarded this update to the Historic Preservation Commission for your review and discussion with the applicant. In the packet, I have included from 2018 the prior application and approval for MCAC 1805. In the time since then, the applicant has been unable to complete the project as was previously presented and approved by HPC. It is our understanding that has to do with geotechnical issues on the site related to the hillside. There have been some discussions between staff and the applicant for a number of months, exploring different options. Most of those options have proved to be financially untenable for them. And so in trying to seek a solution, I made the recommendation that they come back to HPC to provide an update on this, get your insight, and then we'll take action as appropriate. In the packet, as I mentioned, the previous staff memo regarding the cottage that was built at what is now 41 Minnehaha is there. There is a brief letter from the applicant, as well as some pictures of the work that's being done. If you don't have any questions for me, what I would like to do is bring the applicant over and allow for them to provide this update to you. I provided a very, very brief rendition of that, but
That would be fine. That would be
okay. Okay, thank you. I'll bring her, the Morelands over right now. Linda, when you come over, please introduce yourself. Okay, Linda, you're muted and your camera is off.
Wait,
Did that unmute us?
Yes, we can hear you.
here I go, video, okay. Sorry, I'm not real great at this, okay.
Okay. Linda, if you guys could introduce yourselves, your first and last name and your address. And then I would like for you to go ahead and provide an update to the commissioners and we'll go from there.
Linda and Rob Moreland. The site is 41 Minnehaha Avenue, which is next to our property, our home 37
Minnehaha.
Minnehaha.
Thank you. And Michelle, are you still there someplace?
She is still here. I think she turned her camera off for a moment.
Oh,
She might not have thought she would be needed here, so.
Oh, because you can answer our questions.
Right.
Okay.
Sorry, did you have a question for me?
Yes, Michelle, in this case, we just want to listen to what they're asking or what they're expecting, and then we'll go into deliberations after that. Okay, great. I want to always get it right, Linda. Okay, go ahead and share what you wanted to share.
Okay, we have primarily finished everything at the cottage. There was concern about the parking on the front of the retaining wall and parking in the front of the house. The retaining wall is been in place. It's a concrete retaining wall that's a fairly substantial piece of concrete on the front of the property. This was not our original intent. We were trying to keep the walls much smaller and more with what was going on in our area. The engineers got involved and things got crazy very quickly. And what we ended up with is this big monolith in front, and they said that this is what was required to hold the hillside back. And in doing so, they moved the retaining wall closer to the street because they said it required a large quantity of concrete footing on the back side of it to keep the hillside from coming down. And so there's 4 cement truckloads worth of concrete in this project. And the final surface has not been finished just yet on that because I'm doing the work myself and I do it on weekends. So that is where we're at right now.
We did include photos. I believe you have that packet.
We have those photos in color, yes.
Right, the color, the rocks. Our intention is to do what we originally intended, is to stucco with color the wall and then rock it up as far as we can. It'll be 5 to 6 feet with natural rock on the entire surface. There's no way we can do it to the top of the wall. It's not possible. But if you look at the surrounding houses in the neighborhood, most of them are partially rocked and some of them are only railroad ties. So we feel like, that with what we have left, what we're left with, we can make it look a lot better.
It'll look a very nice wall when we get the surfacing on it. And that's really what's just left to do is put the surfacing on the wall.
And we've also, we planted a tree on one side, and then we found out this last weekend that we can get a tree through the city. So we did apply for that to put on the east side of the retaining walls. And then our tenants have put some landscaping on top with flowers and vegetation. They're doing vegetables and herbs. I'm sorry, I'm really tired. I'm struggling for my words. And he's been up a lot longer than me. But anyway,
we think is going to look nice, except for the height of the wall, which we have no control over.
So can I ask, when you go up 5 or 6 with a natural stone, is there a reason why it can't go to the top? Is it a financial, or is it just physically you can't put stones that high?
It is more of the actual stacking it. You know, you have to put anchors into the wall, and you're putting more stress on the whole situation by stacking rocks up,
Right.
surfacing it. And we're not using the fake rock.
Uh-huh.
It's all natural rock.
I would be worried about the danger of making it that high with real rock. And
Now we can make it look kind of the stucco more natural looking. It doesn't have to look like a stucco on a house.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions any of the commissioners might have?
Nope.
I would suggest, Linda, could you and Rob share the difference in height from what was anticipated to where we are now?
Okay. When we originally proposed the idea, we wanted to use 3 retaining walls of 4 foot tall each in progression going up the hill. And as we started excavating the hillside and started putting in the house, there is a line of very soft, I guess you would call it tuft, in the hillside that comes right across the front edge where everything was going to go. And this rock, the whole hillside is rock, but it's not of any great composition. And so there was this line of very soft, as soon as you touch it, it pretty much crumbles across the front surface of the property. So putting anything on top of that was not an option. It would just progressively move down the hill. So the engineer, when he involved came in to build the wall, he needed to put in a structure. This is what he described to us, was a concrete structure that would be one piece. He did not want to design it in multiple walls. He wanted one big monolith piece of stuff to hold the hillside back and hold the front footings on the house. And so the concrete wall has to come up over the footing for the house by 3 feet so that you have your frost line protection. And so then the wall that's in front of that has to come 3 feet from the footing on the wall behind that.
And it's important to note that we did all the soils testing that regional requires along the way. We had 3 different soils tests, and they were all fine. They were all approved, but at each stage things changed. And unfortunately, we had 3 different engineers involved, and we had one who was not honest and who was not interested in taking care of what he needed to take care of. And even though
when our concrete contractor started looking at the drawings and stuff, how to put in the footing, he's like, this is ridiculous. This thing is substantially bigger than anything that he's done for other job sites. And he called the engineer out and argued with him multiple times, trying to explain that this was taking up not only parking, but it was changing the whole structure on the hill. And the engineer insisted that this was as big as the thing needed to be. Until the city got involved, then he changed his mind after the wall was built.
yeah, and then we had to cut part of it off. And the whole thing was just one big mess after another. And part of it was because we were lied to. And then I don't know how else to put it. I'm sorry. If you have questions, we can try and answer them.
No, I think you expressed it really well of what happened to you. I think sounds horrendous.
Thank you. It was.
Yeah. So any other questions for the applicants, and then we can deliberate? Thank you both.
Thank-
And we'll deliberate and let you know our decisions.
Okay, I'm going to, Linda, I'm going to move you back over to attendee.
Okay.
Okay, there we go. And Michelle should be on standby if there's any specific questions that you have for her as well. So we're both here for you.
It's so nice to have both of you.
I've just been lurking, right?
Yeah.
So we know that, and we're okay because we're historic people. So Michelle, it sounds like you sort of got stuck. And it sounds like any solutions that you came up with, I mean, what were some of the solutions that you suggested?
I haven't actually suggested anything. This is the,
Okay.
you know, my conversations previous to when, it's months previous to before Christine discussed it with the Morelands, is that they were just needing more time, you know, to be able to apply the rock and do that kind of stuff.
Oh, okay.
And, you know, now it, you know, they've determined that there are some constraints on being able to take the rock all the way to the top and everything. So, I mean, some of the things that I don't know if they want to look at or might think about would be applying the rock up to the 5 or 6 foot level like they had indicated, and maybe above that, either if they, you know, either stuccoing it like they've asked for, or, you know, they're very involved in the art community. Maybe there could be some sort of mural or trompe l'oeil painting. That would be one of the other suggestions. I've actually seen somebody paint a retaining wall to where it looked like stone and you couldn't tell, you know, I mean, or another thing in regard to the stucco, and I think Rob had kind of alluded to this a little bit. I have seen foundations and some things that were stuccoed, but then they troweled or tooled lines in to make it look like stone blocks at that point. I don't know if that's something that, you know, they could think about doing, and then, you know, just staining, you know, having the stucco be, I would always recommend a slightly darker color because that tends to recede and you don't see things as much. It's not as noticeable as a brighter, lighter color. But anyway, those are just some of the things. You know, certainly doing something up to a certain level that's consistent with the HPC approval, which was to clad it in stone. That's what the proposal was. But then if there's something that could be done, either artistic or a darker stucco color, you know, used up on the top, I don't know, 2 or 3 feet or 4 feet, whatever it is.
Yeah, I think that would be, you know, I think a mural might, I love murals, but I think it might draw too much in. And I think what you were saying about the darker color in this stucco, whether you like stucco or not, it could be made to look less obtrusive. And it sounds like
Grow some vines over it. You know, I mean, there's a lot of things that.
Right.
They have, they've begun planting some vegetation to soften this. I think that's certainly some of the concerns that we've heard folks driving by. It's just this massive wall. And I believe the Morelands have been attempting to soften that with some of their recent vegetative activities.
Yeah, it sounds, especially planting trees, one thing we like in Manitou. Plant them.
Right.
So are you guys looking for what from us? Direction, emotion, guidance? What? I'm a little unsure of what you're looking for from us.
Direction on this. This has become a situation that was untenable for them.
Right.
And some of the discussions that have occurred have not yielded solutions that were fine, because there's also an issue around parking. And so we're handling that separately, whether or not a parking variance will be required. So that's a separate issue.
Right.
But just guidance.
So I would suggest that we certainly need to get it finished. I mean, it certainly, in the unfinished state, it stands out. So I would suggest that along the lines that they have already offered with the suggestions Michelle has made, that we direct staff to work with them to the best outcome that we can get, and to get it finished as promptly as we can get it finished. That would be my direction.
And I agree with you, Ann, on that. Doug, where are you on this?
Well, actually, I looked at that project for Linda before she even started it, and I refused the job. I turned it down because I knew that the topography challenges and the engineering that would be involved in the foundation, she would have as much of the foundation she's having the whole house. And I knew that they would have to do something like that in front of the building. So as they say, the cat's out of the bag or the brick's on your foot, or whatever, they had to do what they had to do. And they can't remove the wall in the building.
No, we are where we are. So
I mean, if he's willing to come in with some natural stone and do some stucco work, it sure as heck's going to make look a lot better than it does now. I mean, I can understand the neighbors being a little disgruntled, but I mean, I think they were probably misguided to a certain degree, by people who just don't want to come out in the field and do their job. So, I mean, I think if they're willing to cure, and if the city can just offer an extension with that, then that's the best you can do.
Yeah.
Pamela, are you there too?
Yeah, and maybe they can do some ivy or something, to just soften that sucker. I feel for them. I can't even imagine.
Well, it'll get, they do a little natural stone, they put some stucco on there. A few more years, it'll get so dirty, it'll look like a hillside anyways.
Yeah. Natural stone is really nice to have rather than the manufactured, even though manufactured has its place. Natural
Exactly.
is something that I always like to see.
So here, because if he starts stacking, when he stacks natural stone, he can only go so far up because the base of it will have to be so large to carry the stone above that he'll lose the parking that he was trying to acquire in the first place.
Yeah.
So Michelle, do we need a motion? Or do we just give you this guidance?
I think just some direction and guidance.
Do you have enough?
Because it's basically staying consistent with the previous approval. There's just a minor modification that, staff basically, instead of just staff approving a modification, just came and said, is this okay? And what we're hearing is it's okay, so we'll deal with it.
It's okay.
Well, I think it's good for the neighbors or people driving by to know that we've addressed it and looked at it, and we're going to find the best solution that we can when there's things that happen that were out of control.
Exactly.
Right.
This is perfect. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. I'll continue to work with them. Michelle and I will continue to work with them to get this through resolution as they presented it, and honoring that quasi judicial process and the prior determination that was made. It was important to bring it to you for guidance. So,
all right. So we will let Christine lurk and continue on.
Thank you.
But is your dog alive? It hasn't moved.
No, she's very much, because she's a Zoom dog.
She literally has not moved a muscle.
No, I know, she's just.
She's ready for her close up.
Well, I try to move her, or we don't let her be in the Zoom meeting when I'm in one. She just barks, so it's much easier.
Aww,
but she's a sweetie, but she hasn't moved.
No, she hasn't moved, and she hasn't uttered a sound. And if we didn't know, we'd just think it was a fancy throw or something.
Well, she is fancy, but not a throw.
Shaped throw. Christine, do you want to talk a little bit, or I don't know if we even want to talk about the information only item in the packet, but
how many of us went to the presentation? I know I went to the library presentation.
Yep.
And Doug did. So 3 of us have gone to their presentation, and I mean, we have the pictures, and we watched the presentation. So
It's in progress. It's a project in progress, and
and
who
it hasn't
knows?
come to us yet. It hasn't
No.
come.
Oh, no, it'll be scheduled. So what we're looking at, so last Tuesday, as you noted, we had a public outreach session to introduce 3 concepts. We did not discuss materials. There's a lot of work to be done there, as well as the size. You know, we're looking at a maximum of what came through prior community outreach and PPLD engagement of, I believe, 3,600 square feet. The nice thing about these designs, as they're conceptually being discussed, is that they can be expanded or they can be contracted depending on actual need and pricing. So we have had tremendous and very robust engagement. We had 51 participants at the meeting last week, and then we've since posted on social media and updated the city's project website with the drawings that are there. And I do not have a number. There has been so much feedback coming in with folks expressing support of different designs. So tentatively, what we have slated at this point is next month at HPC, we'll bring the architectural team here, and at that time be ready to talk a bit more about the feedback from that public outreach session, as well as discuss materials. And we'll have honed in a little bit more on the size. The idea is to, we need to have your feedback, not approval on a final design, but your feedback, as well as input from PARAB. And then in August, we'll be taking those designs to City Council with all of that, and allow for what I anticipate will be a fairly robust discussion about how to move forward with the design. From that point, what we'll do is we'll focus in on a singular design, and the singular design will then go through the standard review process, and that would come here for formal review.
Yeah, I just had one question, and it's not under our purview. So I just want to make that clear. The 3,600 decision was made like 18 years ago or 10 years ago, and now that's why people are making, because I read all those comments, and that seems to be a common theme, is the size. It seems to come up a lot.
You know, that's a really good question. So there was a lot of historical input, not historical like us, right? But over the years, sorry, bad pun, a lot of input from the community about what kind of programming interests there were. PPLD as well, who would be the one leasing and administering the space as a library. What does it mean to take that input? As well, over the last 3 months, they have been working with the architectural team, Pikes Peak Library District's team, on what do they need? You know, what do they need to deliver the services that we need as we're saying we need as a community, and what are they seeing across all the branches? So 3,600 will be the maximum. What I'm asking PPLD to do between now and that final design is, let's start zeroing in on a range, and let's tighten that up, because we need that for cost estimates. Our cost estimates will be per square foot. And of course, what we're able to look at in terms of fundraising and capital campaign will determine quite a bit. But that's where it came from. So yes, it's a number that has been discussed for several years, but it's also undergoing current review and has undergone current review with PPLD.
That is really helpful, because I read those comments, and
So
I'm like, okay.
Yeah, Christine, I guess my feedback would be along the lines of, again, what we have control over.
Yes.
And there are fairly specific guidelines on adding an addition to a historic structure.
Yes.
That I think, from looking at the 3 suggestions, it's not clear to me that the architect was paying any attention to that. And I think sooner rather than later, we need to make certain that they're aware that that's how we're going to make our decision. And they're fairly specific about, number one, it being subordinate, not overwhelming. I mean, they're fairly specific. So that would be my key suggestion, is that they focus in on what we're going to focus on when they come in front of us, so that we don't end up with talking past each other, which I'm afraid we might.
And I
I
think
agree with you completely.
that's very important, Anne, because it's like, we don't need to have the presentation that they did at the library meeting to us, because we understand that, but the criteria are very clear. And that's how we make our decision. As you probably noticed in our meetings, we look at what we can and what we can't do. And that's fair. And I would certainly not want them to come and say all this stuff, and then we say, yeah, but it doesn't meet any of our criteria. So where are we now after all this stuff has gone into it? And architects do drawings and listen. So I would certainly want that before. Good point, Anne.
And that'll be what we do for this meeting. Doug, go ahead. I'd love to hear.
Yeah, option one is they showed, which was option one was the one that was originally developed. That was, the addition was supposed to be around 10,000 square feet, and the thing that this, everybody says, they say 3,600 square feet without adding over 2 floors. So that's, about 1,700 square feet per floor if you were doing a bi-level addition. And I have to say, I was extremely disappointed. The options 3 and 2 were totally historically insensitive. There was absolutely no, they didn't even hold up a candle and try. It was an insult, quite frankly.
Number one had the
I
historic.
was very, very disappointed. And number one, the option number one was just to make it look like a behemoth, just to try to sell their other options. And I'm right now they're gonna have to make a lot of changes and talk an awful mean game to sell me on either one of those options.
Yeah, I think, I mean, in there, maybe to sort of support them a little, I think they kept saying that these were concepts, and they were looking for, what part of this one do you like? What part of 2 do you like? What part of 3 do you like? I think we're going a little bit off track. Is on Facebook, what they're asking people is, which option do you like? And that's never what the architect said. He said, tell me what you like about this one and what you don't like about this one. But we're getting into a contest where people are voting for 1, 2, or 3. And I think we need to stop that, or we're going to end up with a really disappointed part of the population that doesn't understand how this decision is going to be made.
That's a fair statement. Thank you.
Yeah. So Christine, do you have enough then from informing us for the library?
Yes, this has been great. I really appreciate it. And I will come back next month with the architect, and we'll be more refined in the process and have a lot of community input. So
yeah, and let him know the HPC designations, what we need.
He's prepared for that. He is prepared for that.
Good.
So thank you very much.
Well, thank you for coming to our meeting.
Yeah, thanks, Christine.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice to see you all.
Nice to see you.
Okay, guys, I think we're at the end of the night.
We've done really well.
God, I hope we're at the end of the night.
I hope so.
I
Yeah.
think we are. I think it's been a really productive meeting, and we dealt with some really complex issues, and we know our lanes, as Doug says, but sometimes it's love to go outside them, but we won't.
It's hard to stay in that lane sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes I know.
And Michelle, appreciate all your work with the windows and how accurate you were and how you caught a few things that we needed to do. I'm really glad and appreciate everyone's time. And I guess we get to meet again July 19th. And do we need a motion to end?
No, you can just adjourn.
We're going to just adjourn unless anyone has an objection.
All right,
Motion
I'll be in
to
touch
adjourn.
about scheduling that site visit.
Motion to adjourn.
All right. See you.
Thanks,
Good night.
everybody.
Thank
Night.
you.
Not all.
Night.